and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a special event for July 2023 known as the Who Cares Wins charity event, brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, that's iRacing. And today we are working in aid of the Campaign Against Living Miserably. Abbreviated to CALM in short, CALM is a charity aiming to lead the movement against suicide by provoking conversation, running life-saving services and bringing people together so they reject living miserably, getting help when they need it. In this special event hosted by Slow and Steady Racing, known as SAS Racing, in partnership with Takona and also Sim Racing Community, it is a celebration of the fight against miserable mental health and looking to bring together sim racers all over the world as they take on perhaps one of the toughest mental and physical challenges that you can do on any sim racing platform. We're talking about the Circuit de la Sarthe, or Le Mans as it's known in short, a circuit located in France that needs no introduction, but we'll give it one anyway. And indeed, this circuit, the annual host of the 24-hour Le Mans, and celebrated its centenary earlier this year, is a circuit that pushes drivers to the absolute limit and with their cars as well, but particularly with regards to their mental health and their mental fortitude to be able to take on the circuit lap after lap over the course of its 13.55 kilometre distance. But as we get ready to go racing today, indeed, this is a special charity event and our drivers will be competing for a couple of prizes which we'll talk about, but it's all in the name of mental health, and we'll tell you a little bit more about the campaign, the partners and the organisers very shortly. But as we get ready to go racing, let's take you through your schedule times in British Summer Time, that's BST, or Universal Coordinated Time +1 UTC +1. And as we can see, in just under what is 25 minutes, we're making our way into the qualifying session, 15 minutes in duration, while drivers will look to set their best possible lap before they make their way to the grid for our first race this evening. It's a two-race format, with the first race being a 30-minute sprint race kicking off at approximately 8 o'clock. We'll see all our drivers attack the circuit in anger and look to come out on top in what is expected to be a fast and furious race, after which we'll take a brief breather, approximately 15 minutes in duration, before returning at what will be 8:45 for the grid to be set once again, and that will be for the second race of the evening, our final race of the evening with that. It'll be the 60-minute feature. Double the duration compared to the sprint, and therefore a much bigger game in terms of strategy and who's going to come out on top when it is the thinking man and women's game over the course of Le Mans circuit. In the commentary booth, you have myself, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and I'll be bringing you all your racing action tonight over the course of what is expected to be an absolutely thrilling event. We have approximately 20 drivers taken to the circuit thus far, and a few more expected to turn up later in the evening. And well, this broadcast is being brought to you live from the circuit side via two media platforms for your viewing pleasure. Firstly, if you go to youtube.com and search for TX141TX or Paul Walsh, you can tune in there. And we say hello to you guys and girls tuning in via YouTube. Alternatively, if you are more of a Twitch user, you can tune in via twitch.tv/TX141, and hello to you guys and girls tuning in via Twitch. But that's enough about the media platforms. Let's tell you a little bit about the event, the causes and the charity, and we start off with CALM. Now, this event is being run in aid of Campaign Against Living Miserably, but let's talk a little bit more about CALM in full. CALM, as we said earlier, is a charity aiming to lead the movement against suicide by provoking conversation, running life-saving services and bringing people together so they reject living miserably, getting the help when they need it. CALM stands together with everyone who is struggling with life, no matter who they are, where they are from or what they are going through. And if you'd like to know more about CALM, please check out their website at www.thecalmzone.net. But the importance of this campaign, and it cannot be stated enough, mental health, and particularly the depression of mental health that leads towards suicide, is something that is never talked about enough. And indeed, it doesn't matter what walk of life you come from or the situation you're in, everybody deserves the opportunity to be able to work against living miserably and be able to turn their outlook and their thought process from one that is negative to positive through the aid of services, indeed conversation. And as we always say, it's better to talk about things rather than keep things locked up, but so many individuals year in, year out do not have the opportunity to do so, and that's exactly what CALM aims to do, to bring people together to enable them to fight through the miserable life cycle they may find themselves in with regards to their mental health and push forward to a better world, a positive environment, and with that steer clear of suicide. And again, if you do want to find out more about their cause, also the events they host on an annual basis and all more, then go to www.thecalmzone.net, and every little bit of funding raised today will go towards the campaign led by CALM. And then we come on to other partners for today's event, and that is Takona. Now, Takona is the organisation which seeks to build community through cars. Takona aims to combat the growing epidemic of men's mental health by getting the automotive community engaged and involved with one another, changing the stigma that men cannot talk to one another. And if you'd like to know more about Takona, please check out their website at www.takona.co.uk. Now, it's interesting here, you may be thinking, well, we're talking about cars, we're going sim racing and whatnot, so why bring on board Takona? Well, Takona was formulated with regards to aiming to combat the epidemic of men's mental health, and particularly the fact that normally cars, particularly in the 80s and the 90s, were seen as a man's thing, where men were into cars and women perhaps not less so. But in today's current climate, I would say the balance is becoming more and more 50-50, men, women, and indeed everybody getting into automotive industry and cars. But back in the old times, men's mental health in particular really being concerned with regards to cars, and cars being a common talking point for men. Therefore, Takona was set up to get the automotive community engaged and involved with one another, and particularly changing that stigma that men cannot talk to one another, because it's been previously seen that men are the tough people, they don't have to worry about their mental health, but indeed men, just as much as women, everybody else, do need to think about their mental health as well. And I can tell you from someone who has previously suffered from depression myself, ladies and gentlemen, I used to suppress it quite regularly, and I thought, much like many other individuals, I'll get through it, I'm a man, I can tough up, and I don't need to think about my mental health. But being able to talk to other individuals has proven very helpful. And if you want to know more about Takona's efforts, then do go to their website of www.takona.co.uk. Definitely can't stress that enough. Now we come on to our host for this event, and that is Slow and Steady Racing, the SAS racing team. And Slow and Steady Racing is an international team of sim racing drivers. The team places fun and camaraderie above all else, with mental health being right at the forefront of the team's philosophy to engender a community in which all drivers feel valued and can take enjoyment from their sim racing experience. And if you'd like to know more about SAS Racing, then do check out their Instagram, and that may be found at www.instagram.com/slow_and_steady_racing. And indeed, you can find out a bit more about the team, which races over a multitude of sim racing platforms, and is hosting this event under the leadership of Paul Munn. And well, you'll see him out on the grid, we can promise you that. But then coming back to one of our partners for this event as well, we do have Sim Racing Community, and particularly their Sim Racing Community Driver Academy division, who will be supporting this event. And the Sim Racing Community is a platform which aims to bring together all areas of sim racing to create a one-stop shop which offers prospective sim racers everything they need to support them on their sim racing journey. All this has been within a friendly community which looks to continuously grow and ensure drivers have an increasingly positive experience on the virtual circuit. And if you'd like to know more about Sim Racing Community, then please check out the website at www.simracingcommunity.com. And interestingly here, we talked about SAS Racing looking to have a team which is all focused about enjoying the sim racing and particularly mental health being at the forefront. But also you could say that Sim Racing Community looks to focus towards putting mental health and the enjoyment of sim racing at the forefront of their work as well. And that's why we've got them on board. Slow and Steady Racing hosting this event. Indeed, everybody focused on mental health and the right to push forward and not live miserably or not feel miserable with regards to your own mental health. And it's great to have so many groups on board today. And well, lastly, we'd just like to point out that we do have a GoFundMe page that's currently active as set up by Paul Munn. You heard his name being mentioned earlier on. And he's the organiser for this event and one of the senior members of staff at SAS Racing. And if you do go to this page, you'll be able to support tonight's event by making a donation to Calm or simply sharing word of this great cause. Indeed, we're not expecting anybody to make donations, but in terms of our targets, ladies and gentlemen, if you do want to support the donation drive, so far going into tonight we have raised £1,560 out of our £1,800 goal. Now you're probably wondering, was that the goal we always set out for? No, our original goal was 500, but we absolutely smashed it within the first 2 weeks of getting this event underway in terms of the organisation. So we raised it to 1,000, and that got absolutely smashed recently, then to 1,500, and we've jumped ahead of that already. And well, we'd like to get to that £1,800 goal if we can, all in the name of calm. Indeed, we don't take any funds. We have no access to the funds that go through the GoFundMe page. They go straight to the charity at a determined time after which the event has ended, and therefore all your donations are welcome. If you just want to share the page, perhaps you can't donate, we completely understand. Then just share the page, sit back, relax, get yourself a nice cup of tea or a cool beverage, depending on where you are and your preference, and get set for an absolutely thrilling night of sim racing at Le Mans. Without further ado, let's go on to our circuit for today, and it is none other than the Circuit des 24 Heures du Mans, also known as the Circuit de la Sarthe, or just Le Mans as we refer to it colloquially, located in the region of the town of Le Mans, in the French region of Sarthe, in the state region of Pays de la Loire. This French circuit is known for its reputation of being perhaps the most grueling circuit to exist in the world. Now, you could argue perhaps the 24 Hours of Nürburgring, indeed the Nürburgring Gesamtstrecke allowed, or alternatively Sebring in the United States of America, would be able to put a pill towards that. But the thing about Le Mans is it is a circuit that consists of 33 cores, as you can see from the circuit map provided to us by iRacing.com. Thank you to them for their wonderful simulator on which to host this event, and also the circuit maps that come with it. But it is a circuit that consists of a variety of corners of all different natures, and also multiple extended straights. Now, with that in mind, what this means is this is a major test of machinery from start to finish. In the fact, you have to keep in mind that it's not just about the corners and the ability for a car to be able to manage its tyres, but also the fact that when a car accelerates all the way out to top speed down the extended Mulsanne straight, and then comes into the heavy braking zones, particularly at turn 15 at Mulsanne corner, and later on at Indianapolis into Arnage, it means the full car goes through the works. The brakes are put to the ultimate test, and you don't want your brakes braking in, well, that does sound a little bit odd there, but you don't want them falling apart under heavy braking after multiple runs of the circuit. And as a driver, you need to nail those braking points time and time again in order to come out on top. But if you don't get it right, however, then you could end up in tears, and that's why this circuit is seen to be perhaps one of the toughest out there. And as our drivers make the way on round, they'll charge their way across the start-finish straight, up through the sweeping right-hander of Dunlop curve at turn number 1, before making the way into the braking zone for the Dunlop chicane at turns 2 and 3. After that, they'll need to steady the car quickly and get back on the throttle, full throttle as soon as possible, as they then make the way all the way through to the S's of turns 5, 6 and 7. And exiting out of the tricky right-hander at turn number 7, it's then going to be a charge up towards Tête Rouge. Turns 8 into 9, and we'll a double right-hander there, where it's all about that initial right-hand apex of turn number 8, where if you get it right, you'll carry all the speed on the charge down towards the Mulsanne straight, but get it wrong, however, you may find yourself picking up a penalty, which you'll have to serve due to track limits, or you lose all the speed in its entirety, and you'll be vulnerable in the charge up towards the next corner. But after that, our drivers will make the way onto the first of the 3 parts of the Mulsanne straight, previously one extended straight, and indeed the historical layout of this circuit available in iRacing still has the entire straight connected together, but 2 chicanes were added as a safety feature. And indeed, if you do look up Le Mans crashes, for example, on YouTube, albeit we don't recommend you do it right now, you will see a number of cars that end up going into the stratosphere, where the aerodynamics and top speeds were reaching an excess of 200 miles an hour down the straight, and where you can imagine then with the amount of aero going on the car, a slight bump in the road can cause the aero underneath the car to surpass that that's pushing it down on the track surface, and it causes this car to go up into the air, and that's why the chicanes were added as a major safety feature. As they charge the way down, it'll be the first chicane at turn number 11 there, going from right into left, out onto right, onto the second part of the Mulsanne straight, and then to the second chicane at turn 12, going the left-right-left combination, but will culminate in a charge down towards Mulsanne corner at turns 14 and 15. The reason why we say Mulsanne corner is turns 14 and 15 together is the fact you're braking through the apex of turn 14 in order to get the car stopped for turn 15, but exiting out there to run back onto the full throttle as soon as possible as well, before charging all the way down towards Indianapolis corner at turns 18 and 19, a very tricky trail braking zone there, going from the right into left, before coming up towards Arnage at turn 20. Arguably the slightest corner on the circuit, and perhaps the nastiest in terms of the right angle corner, as our drivers make the way out of Arnage. It's a charge up towards the Porsche curves at turns 23 through to 26, and as they come through the right into double left-right combination, there, if you're a spectator, you get wonderful views of the cars as they charge their way through the sweeping corners, but indeed for our drivers there, it's all about balancing the car and starting to get used to the fact it's more than just some heavy braking zones on the circuit. Exiting out, our drivers will then make the way out towards the Corvette curves, where the direction change of turns 26 into 27 can always catch a driver off guard, and we're expecting many drivers to run wide at turn 27, pick up automated penalties, but as they then straight line their way up towards the 4 chicanes, 4 corners remain, turn 33 to 33, and there it's all about getting the car stopped in time, as the average lap speed descends very rapidly to complete lap and start it all over again. Indeed, what a wonderful circuit the Le Mans circuit is, and it is going to be one that's going to put our drivers through their paces. But as for the rules, we can't go racing without rules. Well, we've got a quick set of rules here to take you through. We're not going to bore you too much with them. And setup-wise, all the drivers will be running the Porsche 911 RSR GTE machine, also known as the Porsche 911 991 RSR GTE. And why did we pick this car, you may be asking? Well, with the centenary of Le Mans occurring earlier this year, back in June, It's a year in which we're seeing the retirement of the GTE racing class. Now, what are GTEs? Just to abridge things for those in the motorsporting world that have probably heard of GT3s but not GTEs. Imagine a GT3 class car, so essentially a road class car that has been completely stripped out and then had its aerodynamics completely redefined and had an uprated engine put into it. And then you find that those aerodynamics have been reduced quite significantly compared to a GT3 class car, but in return, on top of that as well, you've got a bit more engine power available, but you've only got traction control in the car, but no anti-lock braking system or ABS, and that's how you get to a GTE. But the GTE class is being retired from the motorsporting world as of this year, and as of next year at Le Mans, it will be GT3s that are racing around Le Mans, so therefore we wanted to do a throwback to the GTE class one last time. And why did we pick the Porsche 911? Well, it's perhaps the most infamous GTE in the fact that the German machine has proven to be a very successful machine over the course of the years, and also it's one of Porsche's limited instances where they've moved away from the rear-wheel drive, rear-engine drivetrain, and instead moved into a mid-engine rear-wheel drive format, and well, the 911 RSR definitely demonstrating this first and foremost. Now, all participants shall be running a fixed setup as provided by SAS Racing, which means they don't have to worry about their setups. All they've got to worry about is their driving. And in terms of qualifying, a closed qualifying format shall be used, which means all of our drivers take to an isolated instance of the circuit. So we're not going to see all of our drivers out on the circuit at the same time on the same piece of tarmac. Instead, they'll all have the tarmac to themselves. Thankfully, we in the commentary booth here and the spectator booth get to see all of our drivers in their individual instances, but therefore it gives them an opportunity to put in their best possible laps over the 15 minutes and not have to worry about impeding one another, alternatively finding that elusive draft down the Mulsanne straight. Now, race-wise, the races shall commence via a standing start. This is a little bit different compared to the rolling start you normally see. So drivers will have to get used to the fact they'll have to launch the car off the line. And whilst they do have traction control available, they've still got to feather the throttle carefully. There are no mandatory pit stop requirements in either of the races. And therefore, it does mean that our drivers will need to be smart with regards to when they engage in terms of making a pit stop. We expect there may be some in the feature race, but not in the sprint race. But one thing's for certain, if they pick up any damage in the races and need to come into the pits to repair it, they do have one fast repair available, which means the damage is instantaneously repaired and they can go back out on the circuit rather than having to wait. And it makes the races a little bit more accommodating. Now, the grid for the sprint race shall be set based on the results of qualifying. That is a given, so whoever qualifies on pole for the purposes of the sprint race, that's exactly where they start. But what about the feature race? Is there another qualifying session? No, there's not. Instead, what we're going to do when the sprint race finishes, we're going to take all the results of the sprint race and we're going to flip them. So we'll be fully reversing the grid for the purposes of the feature race. So to put that in layman's terms, the winner of the sprint race starts last for the purposes of the feature, and the last place finisher of the sprint race starts on pole for the feature race. And we are all of our drivers will be scoring points for both of these races, and come the end of it, we will be crowning a winner, which naturally brings us on to prizes from today. And we've got 3 prizes available for our drivers, and we can see here, firstly, the overall winner of this event, so the driver who accrues the maximum points, and indeed if there is a tie, it will go down to who was the fastest in qualifying. Well, the overall winner of this event will pick up 1 Takona t-shirt, specially provided by our partner Takona, and also a hand-engraved coin commemorating this event as provided by SAS Racing. Now, the winner of each race shall receive a 3-month RaceLab subscription. RaceLab, of course, being a prominent application that you can use to provide overlays and set up data for the purposes of race and number simulators, particularly iRacing and others out there. But we also do have there the Sim Racing Community's coaching session, which has been made available thanks to Sim Racing Community by their Academy division, and thank you to them. And it's a 1 raffle draw prize for drivers who finish both of the races, but the race winners are non-eligible. So that does open up the fact that even if you're not the fastest driver out there, if you're on the grid and you finish both races, you may still get an opportunity to take on a coaching session, and well, that's been offered by Sim Racing Community. That's enough prizes, rules, tracks, and everything in between. We're all here for the racing now, and all in the good effort and mental health. And as we head back to circuit side, while drivers are still making their way on around here, and we do have a little bit of time to go before we go racing. Approximately what is 7 minutes there. In fact, if I do my mathematics, it's actually 8 minutes. And here is one of our many drivers, Dan Sferrer from Slow and Steady Racing, making his way on to Mulsanne. As he charges his way on around, we do say hello to a good number of you, in particularly in Twitch chat, I should say. And we say hello to Soby Gred there, who says, woohoo, let's go. Indeed, Soby, let's go. And also to Iron Duck 92. And I do believe that'll be Mikhail Andreasen, who's messaging there in the Twitch chat saying, let's go, Paul. And indeed, Mikhail, let's go. And I'm looking forward to seeing how you get on the grid today. But as we do hear the roar of German machinery, 510 horsepower from a 6-cylinder engine located in the mid-drift of the car just behind the driver. And well, as we see Paul Munn making his way on through, another one of these Slow and Steady Racing drivers, and our event organiser there, designed not just to be in the event organisation booth, but also getting out on the circuit. And that's absolutely great to see as he makes his way on through and charging on around here, rolling his way down towards the S's right now, getting himself absolutely comfortably in position. And we also say hello there to Dogu R6. It says, time to watch my girlfriend first time a computer. We're glad to have you on board, Dogu, as we do look to out on circuit right now. Build a wall in, as we do see the guy driver here from Sweden in the number 29, going a bit slowly there in the run on down Molzan. I think she's designed to take her time as she gets herself set for a lap and just cruising along here. But all the drivers have had their driver briefing quite recently, and we will get the perspectives of our drivers as we go between the race sessions and try and get a word with them or two. But the driver briefing has occurred, so therefore everybody is down comfortably set, and I believe I'm just checking in with race control at the moment, and yep, we have got a green light in approximately 6 minutes time to go racing. But in fact, just before we do go racing, I think it's only appropriate we try and get a word with our organiser for today, and that is Paul Munn, and I'm going to see if we can briefly grab a word from him as he makes his way down the Molzan Straight, and let's see if he's got a word for us. In fact, we're trying to get a word from Paul Munn right now from his car. Paul, sorry if this is not a good time to catch up with you, but I thought I'd grab you whilst we've got a moment. How are you feeling for going racing today?
Nervous. Whoop. Oh, there you go. I don't know if you're watching me or not, but I just crashed. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It should be a great event.
So we did just catch you having a little bit of a moment there at the second Molzan chicane, and also as an event organiser, really brains behind the operation today. I have to ask, what does mental health mean to you, and what brought you around to wanting to run this event in the first place?
Because as a team, we all are quite there to support each other, and that we have been there. And there's been times when each of us have been low, I'd say. Nowadays, it just seems sort of quite important. It's getting more important. Everything's so hectic all the time. Everyone's always busy, and like we're great. We've got this community of sim racers, and my own team that we're in are just perfect for supporting each other. And we've always got someone to talk to, but not everyone's got that. And I just think it's quite important. You know, we could all do with just talking.
Oh, most definitely, completely agree with you on that. And as we do get ready to go racing today, of course, we've picked a combination which is a major test of mental fortitude. Le Mans, I have to ask, was this the combination you always had in mind from the outset? How did you get to the idea of let's do Le Mans in the GTE class?
Well, the GTE cars now are not raced anymore at Le Mans. Last year was the last year in real life. And I thought that, that makes sense. And for an endurance, I just think, like you say, it is a test. And, we don't make it too easy, do we?
Oh, indeed not, Paul. But with that, and only a couple of minutes to go before we go into qualifying, one last question for you. We can see your P12 on the practice times. Are you expected to be targeting top 10s today? What's your goal?
No, I won't be top 10. I'd love it if I was, you never know. But I just want to finish and have fun. If I finish around 10, 11, 12, I'll be more than happy.
We wish you the best luck in your endeavours today, and thank you for setting up this event, Paul, but we'll leave you to it.
Thank you for giving up your Sunday and streaming for us. I know you put a lot of work into it, and I really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure, Paul, and we'll see you at the finish line.
Yeah, talk to you later. Goodbye.
So hearing there from Paul Munn, the event organiser today, and I think they're distracting him a little bit from its run down into Molzan, and we do apologise for that, but at the same time talking about the motivations and the reasons behind this event and the combination picked, and indeed mental health meaning a lot to everyone, including Paul Munn, and we look forward to seeing how he gets on today, but also emphasising that it doesn't matter where he finishes, he's just looking to finish the race, doing it all for a good cause. And as he makes his way up towards what is the Ford chicanes, we look to our fastest driver here from Olympus Esports, and that is Thomas Cope, and a bit of a moment with the wall there almost going on down towards the Indianapolis corner, and as he comes on down right now, getting himself comfortably set. Indeed, all of our drivers now, I think, really in the zone, and we will try and catch a word from some of our other drivers a bit later on. In fact, I think the Olympus Esports car there in a bit of a state of disrepair, so we may just see him teleport his way to the pits, and he does, and that's being pulled, returning to the pits, but as he makes his way on and back out onto circuit right now, we also do look to Michael Lanahan, as we can see here, the privateer from the US of A, making his way around and charging on through and running there in the slow and steady racing machine. And I believe the number 88 driver there getting himself comfortably set as he draws his way down towards the second chicane. And with these cars very challenging to drive, and indeed they have seen drivers from all walks of life racing them, and perhaps the most notable driver recently from what is a celebrity perspective. If anyone's a fan of more recent movies, such as the X-Men movies, the name Michael Fassbender may mean something to you. Wade Magneto in particular in the regenerative or formulated X-Men movies. Michael Fassbender playing Magneto, also taking part in this year's Le Mans. He has done for a number of years with TF Sport, I do believe. In fact, for the last 7 years, he's been racing in real world and racing in the Porsche 911 GT. Unfortunately, ended up in the wall and retiring with only what was approximately 9 hours to go, if my memory serves me correctly, at the centenary this time around. But even Michael Fassbender taking his stroke to motorsport and doing very well, to be fair, but being called out over the course of the racing at Le Mans. There definitely is a challenging circuit, no doubt about it. And as all of our drivers get themselves set right now, Michael Flanagan, one of many drivers here, and everybody on the grid from different walks of life. Most of our drivers here, not necessarily being professional esports sim racers, and indeed all were coming from different walks of life, and therefore giving up their time to a hobby they love, and all coming together in the honour of mental health. But as we look to Nick Ewers here, the prime team making his way on through turn number 8 and up towards Molzan. Now going a bit wide there and running a very fancy blue livery machine, the blue and grey livery machine with the stripes for it, and he's only got 30 seconds to go. We look forward to seeing how he gets on as well as he charges on around. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we're only now moments away from going racing, and we'd just like to remind you that if you are looking to support this event this evening, whether it's through a donation or just sharing the name of the cause, you're welcome to share the link to this broadcast at any point with friends and family. We recommend you do so as much as possible. But if you are looking to make a donation or just want to read more about the cause, or indeed want to share it with others, then you can donate to support the car by the official GoFundMe page, and that link has been provided once again in your respective stream chat. But with the clock now striking what is 1 hour and 45 minutes complete, the checker flag comes out on this final warm-up session. It's time, ladies and gentlemen, for us to go racing, starting with the 15-minute qualifying session. Now, as our drivers make their way out on to the circuit, they're all going to have a lone instance of the circuit available to them. And this gives us an opportunity to talk a little bit as they go on to their initial laps, and that's their initial, what is warm-up laps, if you will, or their out laps, albeit they're not going to be starting from the pit lane and doing a full lap of the circuit. Instead, they start from what is the exit of the Corvette curves, going on to what is the Ford chicane. So therefore, they'll have cold tyres initially before they go charging on out. And I do believe we just recently had another driver join us in the form of Adam Olivieri. So you will see our overlay refresh itself a little bit as we do load some more drivers' data. We do apologise if that's disconcerting, but we'd just like to remind you that if you see the overlay on screen flashing up or refreshing itself, do not panic. It's not your TV, it's not your computer having a moment. It's on our end, and we are just currently uploading some driver data for the purposes of the broadcast. Of course, we always do miss one or two things before we do go racing, but that will very rapidly be resolved, and you've got nothing to worry about as we do look to Vida Wallin making their way on around through turns 5, 6 and 7, going through the S's right now and getting herself comfortably set as our drivers make their way on through. But what can we expect in qualifying at Le Mans? Well, given the fact all of our drivers are taken to a lone instance of the circuit, and therefore they're not going to be having to try and find the slipstream of one another, it does mean that it really comes down to how quickly you can feel comfortable in the car. As we do see it while in there getting it slightly wrong, coming through the overlap and deciding to go again. Indeed, with only 15 minutes available, all the drivers have a limited amount of time at their disposal, so therefore getting a good lap on the board, it more comes down to just getting a lap on the board that acts as your banker, and then trying to push beyond that, and whoever is able to do so quite early on may find themselves qualifying quite high up the grid. But as we said, this is more of a circuit where it's about just getting comfortable and putting that lap in, so therefore you can imagine with 15 minutes and the lap time around here just being under 4 minutes in duration for GTE class cars, therefore it is all going to come down to having approximately what is 3 to 4 laps on the board, and our drivers just trying to find their pace and get themselves up to speed. They'll most likely have enough fuel, based on the fixed setup they've been provided, to do a constant set of qualifying laps all the way up to time being called. So therefore, our drivers won't necessarily have to worry about coming to the pits and putting a bit more fuel in the car, unless they decide to pull some fuel out of the car before they go driving. But I reckon most will just stay out there and continue to put laps. And keep in mind, this first lap they do, it's starting off of what is a very limited outlap. Their outlap beginning at the end of the Corvette curves going in towards the Ford chicane. So as soon as they go across that timeline, they go immediately onto a lap. As we see Russell Barnes from FindingSpeed.com making his way on down towards Mulsanne corner. But he'll be getting himself up to speed. And the best laps we'll see will be right towards the end of this session. It'll be the last 5 minutes where we'll really see the flavour of the lap times coming on out. But anybody here can put a good set of laps together, I think, in terms of just feeling comfortable and not making any errors, they'll be inside that top 10. But as we do say hello to MDC3755 there in the Twitch chat. Good evening to you, MDC, and saying good evening to all. Glad to have you with us, MDC. And do keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, there is also a Gran Turismo 7 version of this event currently ongoing, and that's being hosted by SAS Racing as well. And to find out details about that, we do recommend you go to the SAS Racing Instagram to find out more. But we're focusing here on the iRacing event as we say hello to Miss Kitty Louise at 90, who says good evening, Paul, and all. What a fabulous charity to support, and we're glad to have you with Miss Kitty Louise. I hope you're doing well, and to everybody tuning in, I hope you're having a great weekend so far. I know it's a working down on Monday tomorrow, but don't worry about that right now. Turn that frown upside down as we do see Russell Barnes continuing his way up towards the Porsche curves. Indeed, all in support of the Campaign Against Living Miserably. And if I may, for a brief moment, ladies and gentlemen, talking a little bit about personal and mental health, and I think it's only appropriate to open up. When I started this year, unfortunately, I found out very quickly earlier this year that I was going to effectively be pushed out of my day job, indeed, of doing commentary. It's not my day job, but it's my second job, if you will. It's the job I'd love to have as my day job, but got booted out of my day job within IT, and well, I've had to do a lot of work and speak to a lot of people with regards to mental health to really turn that frown upside down, if you will. But I'm pleased to say that I'm gradually working my way back into a working environment. It's all through the help, all the mental health services, including Carmen, also talking to people. The most important thing that I've been able to turn things around, and that's why mental health means a lot to me, and indeed it means a lot to a lot of people. And if mental health means a lot to you and you want to share any stories, feel free to do so in the Twitch and YouTube chat. Indeed, a little bit shared is important. But as we see our first lap times coming on through, it's going to be Cope who sets the fastest lap so far, albeit only 2 drivers putting a lap time in there, and that's a 3-minute 48.883 for the driver from Olympus Esports. He now makes his way through turns 2 and 3 once again, and we'll see Philip D there going 1.5 seconds behind our 350.333. And well, we do know that Cope is expected to be one of the favourites here today in terms of his outright pace, when iRacing is just in excess of 6,000. I believe it's 6,053 last time I checked. Doing a little bit of research earlier on about the drivers on the field. Cope's definitely right up there with some of the fastest. He goes a bit wide, they're going out of Mulsanne, and maybe an invalidated lap, and therefore this may be just a bit of a reference lap as he makes his way now on down the Mulsanne straight. As he charges his way on down. We also do look here to Samuel Bernardi from the United States of America, and with Samuel Bernardi, who I've previously seen at race in the middle of the pack Racing League Cruising USA GR86 Championship. And I can definitely tell you that when he was racing as an AM driver, we're expecting his pace not to be right up towards the front of the field, but he's a very happy-go-lucky driver, always willing to give it his best, and as he makes his way around there in the number 8 car, we look forward to seeing how he gets on. Indeed, he could be a little bit unknown here as he makes his way down towards Indianapolis corner and getting himself set there as he rolls the car on through. And very shortly, we will get an on-board lap with one of our drivers. They make their way on around to effectively what will be their second flying lap, as we do look to what is Stuart Pearson here, making his way in towards the final couple of corners. And as he rolls his way on through here, will Pearson heading towards the timeline, and very shortly to get on board with him as he makes his way around for another flying lap of the Milan circuit. Charges the way across the timeline with 358.858 to start, and up towards the Dunlop curve here. He's going to go through the right-hander as close as possible to flat out with a little bit of a lift on turn, in fact, and onto the brakes nice and early there for the Dunlop chicane. Going all the way down to second gear, connecting the apexes together in a straight line as he powers out and now making his way into the S's. Down through Dunlop at turn number 4 and into the right, left, right combination, turns 5, 6 and 7. Braking for turn number 6 here, dropping down to third gear, just coast the car into the initial apex, then get it pointing straight, or turning through turn number 7, gentle on the throttle, not to cause the car to understeer. Now braking his way into Tetruge, dropping gear to full and shut the car through the corner, and now flat out all the way down Mulsanne. Now building his way up towards turn number 10, and it'll be for the right-hand kink here. We're getting ready for turn number 11, the first of the chicanes. Heading up towards top gear into 6th gear, speed already in excess of 169 miles an hour. Now building up ever more. By the time he gets to the chicane, he'll be hitting the braking zone at almost 180 as he heads on down, looking to his left-hand side for his brake marker. 3, 2, 1, and it's onto the brakes as he comes way down to second gear, down to 75 miles an hour at the corner apex, powers out. It's a nice run from Pearson as he now makes his way onto the second part of Mulsanne. Now, thankfully, he does have a bit of breathing time here, but the thing about these long straights is they do lead to becoming a bit complacent. Obviously, you can start to become distracted by the fact you're looking for a brake marker that doesn't seem to appear, and then suddenly snap, it's right there. And that's the thing about these long straights as well. They seem like a pleasantry, but at the same time, they can be unnerving. As he gets ready to brake once again, he looks to his right hand side for his brake marker, braking there at what is the 200 ball coming all the way down to second gear, rolling on through the second chicane. A bit of a tighter apex there. 71 miles an hour at the corner apex. He powers on out and now makes his way up towards the Mulsanne corner itself. Via the kink there and going down towards turns 14 and 15. And here you'll see when we say about braking across the apex of turn 14 as he continues to build up towards top gear once again, going into sixth gear now. We're absolutely roaring there, the six cylinders of the German machinery. And now looking for the turning point, turns in and then onto the brakes over the apex curve of turn 14 to get the car stopped down to first gear as he hits the apex of the Mulsanne hairpin and exits out. Nice run there from Pearson as he now heads up towards Indianapolis. Now we've got an even longer straight here with two kinks in it as he makes his way up towards Indianapolis corner at turns 18 and 19. As he comes on through the double right-hander, charging all the way down towards the Indianapolis corner here, where he's got to breathe, and he'll need it this time because Indianapolis is one of the trickiest corners to get spot on time and time again. He looks to his left-hand side for his brake marker. When he finds it, goes onto the brakes here, coming down through the speed, staying in sixth gear and then dropping all the way down to third gear as he turns in for turn 19, connects the dots together there as he hits the exit curve, brings the car over to the left hand side for an arch, braking there at the 100 metre board down to first gear, a little bit of understeer under braking, creeping in there and just missing the tyre barrier on exit as he powers up through the gearbox now, heading all the way towards the Porsche curves. And we've had a lot of heavy braking under the straight so far, and now we're going to see perhaps the most technical part of the circuit come to life. Bringing the car up towards the Porsche curves there, it's going to be the right hander first as he comes in towards turn number 23, and through the right hander he goes, turning in at what will be effectively the 75 metre point from the apex, fifth gear as he chucks the car in now, the double left here, trying to get as close as possible to flat out as he comes on through with a bit of lift in fourth gear, rolling the car from left into right as he comes into the right hand now at turn number 26, third gear as he drops down towards the apex to set the car, and then chuck it to the right here for the Corvette curves at turn 27, just about gets the car together as he now makes his way through 28 and 29 to complete the Corvette curves and then up towards turns 33 to 33. It's the board chicanes, the first one you brake for on the pit entry here on the right hand side, breaking it down 2 gears down to the second gear, in fact 3 gears down as he goes between and now onto the brakes once again, going through turns 32 and 33 to complete the lap, using the runoff area there at plenty as he heads towards the timeline. It's a smooth lap from Stuart Pearson. What's it going to be here? It's a 3:56.854, and I think he'll feel as though that's the best he can get out of that set of tyres as he goes to a parking point, and he'll make his way back out on circuit for one more lap in due course. But as our drivers continue to put the laps in right now, we do see that right now it's an Olympus Esports 1-2 for Cope and Sledgley, and then it will be Philip Lee and Russell Barnes on the second row provisional. And meanwhile, we do have Mikael Andreasen, who's just gone back to his start point here. He's decided to go for one more lap. He's parked up P6 on what is a 3:51.24, fastest laps out there, 3:48.889. Goodness me, from Cope. That's absolutely flying. But meanwhile, quite a few drivers still to get laps in there, as we do see what is here. Paul Munn making his way on down out of the corner of Mulsanne as we say hello there to Tim Coxmeter. Great to see you tuning in, Tim. I hope you're doing well. And they're saying there, yes, 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 Thomas Cope on pole. And indeed, let us know who you're cheering on, ladies and gents. But in the chat, we do see going from Munn back to Cope. And Cope right now out there on the lap. I can tell you, in terms of this lap thus far, the only improvement he's made is an improved Sector 1, which is the fastest Sector 1 of everybody, of 33.47. But beyond that, I think he is still trying to find a bit more time. But going from him to a driver who's still trying to find some time out there, and about a lap on the board, well, here is Steve Jans, who's just currently parked up. And I think, in fact, Jans will be starting from the back of the field, given the fact he's not really moved from there, and I think he's decided it's not worth trying to put a lap in. He's going to focus his efforts more on when we go racing. But other drivers who yet to get a lap on the board include what is Dan Ferrier, as we do see the number 16 driver from Slow and Steady Racing making his way up towards the Ford chicanes right now. The Scotsman here, a very fast driver in his own right, particularly I do believe, if my memory serves me correctly, with regards to LMP2 and GT3 class racing. But deciding to move to the GTE class here today, and therefore shaking things up as he makes his way on through the final two cars. You can see the car there going onto two wheels for a brief moment as he crosses the curbs. As he makes his way across the line, it's a P5 there from Ferrier, and what a good time to do it, a 3:50.318 as he crosses the line. Meanwhile, we have Cope coming on through, and Cope goes purple in the first and last sector, but he does not find any extra time. What about Russell Barnes? Barnes across the line goes P2 on a 3:49.352. The FindingSpeed.com driver absolutely delivering when it it matters most. And, well, who else is out there on the lap? We do have Daniel Sedgley, who's going around on the lap at the moment as he makes his way on through the double left there of 24.25, the Porsche curve midriff, and as he goes over the bridge, which essentially runs over where spectators come into the circuit for when they want to camp, now making his way in towards the Corvette curves here, using a little bit of the curve and some of the inside grass to help rotate the car. Got to be careful that it works in small doses, but too much, and you'll find the car becoming unsettled, and the rear will kick round, and as he makes his way up towards the Porsche chicanes in, towards the brakes, this will be his last lap that he's able to get, and I do believe there's no overtime available for our drivers. When the clock strikes 15 minutes, that's it. Qualifying is done and dusted, and as he comes out of the final corner, what's it going to be? Sedgley crosses the line, currently P3, he improves, but it's not enough to dethrone Barnes from the front row of the grid. Sedgley will be starting P3 in a 3:49.445, and meanwhile elsewhere out there we have Jacob Harrington, the driver from the United States of America, starting to make his way up towards the Porsche curves very shortly, and Harrington's roaring on down there in the SAS machine as he heads in towards turn number 23, coming in to the right hand here, and where it's all about composure as he sweeps away. A wonderful distance shot there, gives you an idea of the sweep of the first corner and then the subsequent double left. And as he comes on down towards turn number 26, just bringing the speed down little by little, goes a bit deep there, and that will change the body language of the car as he comes into 27 now, where he has to take a bit more speed out of the car to now the apex of the Corvette curve, but he makes his way on through, keeps it all together and heads to the timing line. And what's it going to be here from Harrington? He's currently the last driver inside the top 10 of 3:52.06. That was his previous lap that he was able to, which is his best lap so far. And right now, does not look so he's improved. Gets it very wrong there, under braking into the forward chicane and bounces the car over the curves. And that will be the end of his qualifying session, and a dismal way to end it. But still, I think he'll take a bit of pride and proudness in the fact that a P10 on the grid, on the caliber grid of this scale, with 20 drivers on the grid, that's not too bad an achievement at all, as we do see Michael Lanahan currently just parked up there and getting ready to go racing. Is anybody else out on a lap? That's the big question. I think most of our drivers now have decided to parking up, and I think now they're all focusing ahead for what is the race that is to come. But as they all get set, we won't be able to get a word with our drivers right now, given the fact that we are only moments away from going to the grid for our first race of the day. But it is Thomas Cope who will take pole position then with a 3:48.883, parked up there on the run out of the Dunlop curve. He's proud of that one, and 5 tenths clear, or almost 5 tenths clear, of Russell Barnes from FindingSpeed.com, who will take P2 behind the Olympus Esports driver. On the second round of the grid, it'll be Olympus Esports' Daniel Sedgley, who is joined by Philip Lee, as meanwhile we have had Adam Olivieri just get a lap in right at the death of the session, and he's gone P14 on 3:54.460, a good lap. Well, here we go to the grid, ladies and gentlemen. It's time for race number 1. And as our drivers make their way into position for the standing start, it's Thomas Cope who starts on pole position for Olympus Esports, joined on the front row by FindingSpeed.com's Russell Barnes. Behind them, Daniel Sedgley and Philip Lee make up your second row for Olympus Esports and the Privateer respectively, with Dan Sferrier starting P5 on the third row of the grid, joined up by Michael Lanahan, the Privateer. We then have on row number 4, Slow and Steady Racing and Mikael Andreasen, joined by RPM Racing's Brad Crouch, with Piers O'Degre. Oh, goodness me, my apologies. Piers D'Audrey, and what is there, the Slow Steady Racing drive, being joined by teammate Jacob Harrington starting at P10. Then on the 6th row of the grid, it's Tim Williams for Sausage Dodgers Racing and Slow Steady Racing's Paul Munn. And then behind them on row number 7, it will be the combination of Jens Larsen and Adam Olivieri, with then Nick Ewers and Stuart Pearson starting on the 8th row of the grid. On row number 9, it's Samuel Bernardi and Patrick Thompson, with Vida Wallin and Vilda Wallin, I should say, and Steve Jans completing the top 20 and the final row of the grid. But the grid is almost set now, and we are ready to go racing, ladies and gentlemen. And as we do get ready now, we are only moments away from the lights procedure, and it's 510 horsepower car, 10,000 horsepower gets underway. We have 1 red light, 2 red lights, 3 red lights, 4 red lights, 5 red lights. And it's lights out and away we go for the first race of the day. It's a standing start, which everyone has to tiptoe the way and through. But as they make the way up towards turn number 1, Cope has a poor start compared to Sedgley. As they make the way into the opening corner on the inside, there goes Brad Crouch. As we see Tim Williams also trying to make some gains as they roll away. And up into the braking zone for turn 2 they go. The Dunlop chicane always proved to be difficult. Cold brakes will carved. That's Mikael Andreasen taking a bit of a wide line as everybody tries to make it through. Williams here battling side by side with Paul Munn. The Sausage Dodgers racing car was on the inside in the run front of turn 1. Munn still not giving this up as they make the way on down. Going into the S's here, still side by side. Brilliant racing between them as Munn looks at the return move here through 6, but Williams is on the inside for 7. They give each other breathing room and a bit more than that as they make the way into Tetra Rouge. And as they come through the right hand here, it's going to be a drag race down towards the first Moles and chicane as Munn goes very wide. That could be a slowdown in effect as they power the way on through. And immediately around the outside goes Jens Larsen as Larsen now tries to gain it where Munn leaves off. But as they make the way up towards the first chicane, and meanwhile at the front of the field we can see it Sedgey ahead of Cope, with Cope right now in the tow and looking to close up. I wonder if the two Olympus Esports riders here will try and break away, working together. In fact, no, they decide they want a little bit of a rivalry here, and who can blame them? It's all for fun as they make the way in towards the first chicane. But as they come up through the right into left, you can see there Sedgey really now just backing off a little bit, knowing the tow's going to come back to him. Meanwhile, further back with it to Nick Ewers here, looking around the outside of Vilda Wallin as they make the way out of the chicane. Gets a little bit wrong there, a bit of a tank slapper in terms of a bit of oversteer on power, and therefore now we have Thompson looking for the move around the outside, but as they power their way down to the second part of the Moles End Straight, everybody now trying to settle into a rhythm. The only one who cannot in this scenario right now is Ewers. He tries to peek around the outside of Andreas and can't find it. Thompson's going to defend here. The Olympus Esports trying making it too wide for Andreas, and Andreas on the inside as they head into the braking zone. Who's going to back out here? It looks as though neither one's going to back out. A bit of contact between them, and both of them come together. They both miss the wall, but both head towards the gravel trap. And Mikkel Andreasen again right in the wars after a difficult turn 1 into 2. Now finds himself in contact with the Dane of Thompson, his fellow countryman, and well, I think there's going to be a little bit of an argy-bargy between them. But meanwhile, we look towards the front of the field, and Cope still ahead of Sedgey after the run on the Moles End Straight. They've still got the run down towards Indianapolis, and as they power the way down this time, everybody in the long line astern as we look to the back of this, what is quintuplet of Dan Sferrier as we jump on board with the slow and steady racing driver. And here he's really in the popcorn seat view right now in terms of the fact he's got the tow of 4 cars in front of him. He's got a comfortable gap to Michael Lanahan behind, and as they make the way down, with Sedgey and Cope still battling for position. In fact, we look to that battle at the front as they make the way on down towards Indianapolis corner. It is going to be, I do believe, Sedgey on the outside here as they head into break. Cope returns to the outside now of where's the actual corner of Indianapolis, and as they roll their way out, Cope still holding on here in this battle, really right now stepping up again as we see Russell Barnes immediately behind the FightingSpeed.com driving, not letting these two just run away with things as they roll the way out of Arnage, and now on towards the Porsche curves they go. But as they do, we look a little bit further back to Tim Williams, and Williams right now still trying to steer clear of Munn. He's got Jens Larsen in front, and Larsen has got ahead of Williams whilst everything's been playing out. And as they make the way on the power now down towards the Porsche curves, all these guys all closely knitted together as they charge on through. We can see there Walling continues to make progress, having started from the back of the field and was the final row of the grid. Vilda Walling definitely making progress with P19 as they roll their way on through. Remember, this is a 30-minute race, so our drivers do effectively have at their disposal 9 laps of racing, not expecting any pit stops in this one, and therefore it is going to be a long test as, oh my good lord, what on earth has happened there in the ranks of Porsche cars? That's Patrick Thompson and Stuart Pearson who've had a nasty coming together, and well, there's a bit of a story to behold on that one. We'll come back to that very shortly in the instance of lap number 1, but meanwhile after 1 lap of racing coming on to go on to lap number 2, it's Thomas Cope who leads for Olympus Esports ahead of teammate Daniel Sedgey by half a second. P3 Russell Barnes ahead of Philip Lee, followed by Dan Sferrier. Michael Lanahan then in the second pack of cars, P6 as they make the way up the hill with Piers Georgie in P7 ahead of Brad Crouch P8, Jens Larsen P9, and Tim Williams completes your top 10 with Paul Munn best the rest at P11. But as they make the way in towards the Dunlop chicane this time around, our drivers all battling the plenty right now for position, and indeed we are starting to see some packs of drivers form here, and that's going to create a little bit of these competitive battles, if you will, where drivers at similar levels of pace now starting to itch and scrap for a fight. And as they make the way down for the S's this time, Vilda Wallin and starting P19, making 6 races on the open lap, trying to make further progress as the guy driver from Sweden continues to push on. And right now Wallin definitely one to watch out for as she races away into Tetra Rouge. Going for the right-hander and on to the Moles End Straight, building up the speed here. The number 29 driver right now does have Harrington in sight. They're both friends of the circuit, but rivals on the circuit. We're together, and as they make the one down, everybody in a bit of a tow here, and it really is Jens Larsen at the front of this group right now, who's not got the tow of anybody else, and Williams is going to try and capitalise on this as they head down towards the next braking zone. But keep in mind, we've got 2 more straights and an even longer straight to go. So is it the right place to be ahead right now, or do you wait to the very end of the run? That's only something you as a driver can decide as they make the way through the first Moles End chicane, coming out turn number 11. And Larsen now will have the run back versus what is is Williams, but Williams doing a little bit of bobbing and weaving here. Does not like the fact that they're all constituted together behind him as they make the way down. And we see one in the back of the picture trying to make a way around Harrington. Harrington tucks in behind, so it does look as though the slow and steady racing driver from the US right now deciding to play the game of waiting rather than pouncing. And as they make the way towards the next braking zone, it's going to be Williams versus Larson and Munn. Munn looking around the outside here to the inside into the action chicane versus Larson. A good move here from the number 71 driver. Larson's going to defend it, however, as they come off. And it's going to be a drag race with Williams breaking away to almost a whole second. But look at this, and Walling going around the outside. It's going to be 3 wide in the run down towards Bolzan, and they've all come together. And it's all ended in cheers before they can make their way to the braking zone. Well, I definitely think there's going to be a few drivers who are going to make use of their fast repair. Well, it looks as though they're one driver coming across the other two, and it's all gone wrong as they now make the way down. But it looks like Paul Munn in particular has come off the worst of the group there, but definitely all of them perhaps could have had that a little bit better. And if they had, it would have been a thrilling freeway run down towards Bolzan corner. But still mistakes were made, and meanwhile, no mistakes being made at the front of the field between Cope, Sedgwick and Barnes as this top three continue to try and charge away from the field as they make the way down to the braking zone for Indianapolis this time. And as they come on through, we jump on board with second place driver Daniel Sedgley as we get a baseball of the rear of Cope's car in front of us as they make the way into our Narge. Now going for the right hand, all three drivers, oh goodness me, and Sedgley, I think he made a slight bit of contact with the tyre barrier there unless I'm mistaken. That must have been a lightest touch, but in return, Sedgley right now pushing the Olympus Esports 6 car to its absolute limit as they power their way up towards the forged curves. But here for Sedgley, the problem he's got is the fact he's going to go into these corners with dirty air plenty in front of him. And whilst there's not as much air on these cars compared to their GT3 brethren, which are taking over from them next year in the real world of motorsport at Le Mans, these cars still are affected by that dirty air, and Sedgley right now having to really balance that front end of the car, get the turn in nice and early, having to bleed a little bit of speed off in order to stay right in hunting distance. And you can see there, Cope able to take a bit more of an aggressive approach compared to Sedgley, who has to back the car off, turn in earlier, but now his apex, he does so very well as they make the way towards the forward chicanes. As they make the way into the brakes here, it's all going to be now about how can Sedgley get the run on the next lap. And keep in mind, of course, we've got a long way to go in this race. We're only at the end of lap number 2. We are expecting it to be 9 laps in total in this race. No pit stops expected, so therefore it's going to come down just as much to consistency as it will in terms of outright pace. I think anybody can win this race, much like anybody can win the 24 Hour of Le Mans. And Sedgley right now charging his way up towards turn in number 2. We do say hello there to Takona in the YouTube chat, Takona's official YouTube channel, saying it's sending out the love from the Takona team, and we're very happy to hear that. And we'll thank you, Takona. It's a pleasure to be running this event in partnership with yourself. And as we do see our drivers making the way on down towards what is their turns 5, 6 and 7. More drivers rolling on through right now and charging in towards Tetra Road. The battles are on a plenty, and speaking of battles, we've got a battle here for what is, I do believe, P13. That's between Nico Andreasen and Adam Olivieri. Olivieri starting from towards the back of the field as well. We thought on paper then putting in that absolutely brilliant lap towards the end, which meant he started P14 as number 58 driver makes his way into the S's, powering his way all the way up towards Tetra Rouge right now. But Andreasen starting to break away. But as we do talk about breaking away, it's time for us to take a brief break away to take a look at what happened on the open lap, in particular between Patrick Thompson and what is Stuart Pearson. And this was in the run into the Porsche curves, and we're looking at this from Thompson's perspective initially from the third person cameras, and as he made his way on through, well, Pearson got it wrong and rejoined, and the two drivers came together there, and what a nasty moment for both of them. And we'll take a look back at that from what's on board of Patrick Thompson's car, and you'll see here, I think with Pearson going off, I think Thompson thought to himself, you know what, Pearson's going to have to take a bit of time to rejoin, but then all of a sudden Pearson comes right back, or you can see Thompson starts to react to it, and it's all gone, and that leads to what is there. Pearson end up on the wall, Thompson's suspension being completely damaged and having to return to the pits. But as we now return to the live pictures, ladies and gentlemen, we do look back to Daniel Sedgley versus Thomas Cope as they make the way on down. We will very shortly get a replay of the incident that occurred between Munn and a couple other drivers in the charge down towards Molzan corner. That was on lap number 2. We'll try and get a replay of that very shortly to see what exactly happened there. But that's been our first major incident of the day, at least on lap number 1 between Pearson and Thompson. We have had a couple other moments, and speaking of which, Cope, they're going a bit wide as we've got a car very far off in the distance, and that is Russell Barnes from FindingSpeed.com getting it wrong at Molzan. So the Olympus Esports drivers now in a little bit of pocket by themselves, albeit essentially getting ahead of Cope for the first time in a little while under momentum as they make the way in towards Indianapolis. As they they charge the way on down this time. 20 minutes still to go, and I think this might be a bit of battle between the two of them all the way to the line. I think they're enjoying this battle rather than bitterness, but as they make the way over through, it's going to be a run around the outside there for Cope. Cope gets the inside of Indianapolis and holds it again. Essentially right now, I think really playing the patience game as he goes a bit wide. Meanwhile, Brad Crouch versus what appears Georgie as he makes his way into the braking zone, and the RPM racing driver from the United States of America, a very decorated driver indeed. I do believe I've had the pleasure of seeing him racing in a number of events put on by FTR Esports in the past, doing very well in those for RPM racing, and the American driver here today in the number 5 definitely has shown his credentials. The battles of P7 with DOG as they make the way down towards the Porsche curves. The next target, Michael Lanahan, who is 4 seconds up the road. Lanahan in a bit of a rock and a hard place right now, a lonely one in fact. He makes his way through the foreground of our camera, and meanwhile further back in the rear of the picture you've got Tim Williams making his way away from Jacob Harrington, the last 2 drives inside the top 10. But as they make the way on around, we have an opportunity to take a look back at what happened in that freeway fight for what was at the time P11, only a lap ago, and this is exactly what happened between Wallin, Larson and Munn as they made the way on down. Now 3 wide initially, and I think Munn may have just come across slightly there in the run on down. We only saw a brief moment of it. We'll try and get another moment of what exactly happened. But I think Munn just made a slight encroachment over to the left hand side, and that's what led to everything kicking off. As we do try to get the perspective from Munn this time. And we jump on board here with Paul Munn for that run, which infamously ended up in disaster for the 71 driver as he makes the back corner, a bit of a slow run off the corner, and also a bit of a knock there from a driver behind. Now you're going to see, he'll make his way down, he's 3 wide at this point. I'm not sure if he realises the car starts to creep over and into the wall then, and it absolutely ends up in disaster for the slow and steady racing driver. And more as we take a further look back at that from the first view as they made the way down. Who was the one who made contact with the rear of them? I guess is the question here. I think it may have been contact with Larson as they came out of the corner. And in fact, there's the initial contact between Larson, a bit of netco contact there, and then Wallin trying to brave it around the outside. And as they make the way down, Munn just comes across slightly, netco contact further into actual contact with Larson's car, and that's what ended up with the 3 of them coming together. An unfortunate one, but definitely great racing between them up until that point, and still plenty of racing to come. As we will return to live pictures, and just in time here to catch the battle towards the front of the field. That's Philip Lee P3, but meanwhile after falling off the circuit at what was the Mulsanne corner only moments ago, Russell Barnes finding speed, making his way right now back up to speed as he comes out of the first Mulsanne chicane. He just found his way past Dan Ferrier and is now looking to go hunting after Lee for P3 and the final spot on the podium in the sprint race as they charge their way on down and towards what will be at the Mulsanne corner this time. But as they do, we'll head in towards the race over the chicane first and foremost. Everybody right now, I think, up to speed and feel a bit more confident in the car. We do have one driver who's in the pit lane at the moment, and that is the former Patrick Thompson, who's having the car repair work done. I do believe that may be a bit of premature retirement for Thompson, which is unfortunate. We expect plenty more from him in the feature race, the 60-minute race. And as Barnes makes his way on out here, well, we have had an incident for Hilda Wallin quite recently. We'll have to have a look back at what happened to Wallin shortly. Right now we stay entrenched and focus on this battle between Lee, Barnes and Ferrier for P3 as they head out towards Mulsanne. As they make their way into the braking zone with these cars being up to temperature and looking to push on. The key thing that our drivers will now be thinking about is who are they really battling with and where can they start to make the progress. And this is when you've got a circuit that's very long in nature, as we said earlier, 13.5 kilometres in length, rounded up to the nearest point of a kilometre. And as they make the way on and round with Russell Barnes right now, looking around the outside here at Lee, it's going to be a long drag race, and Lee will not take comfort in the fact that Barnes has got an early overspeed. It's going to be worth about 2 to 3 miles an hour in practice as they get ready to battle on the brakes. Lee just tucks in as they make the way down, and Barnes retakes P3, but Lee all over the back of them as they make the way on through Indianapolis corner. And we look back from the rear now of Barnes' car as they make the way towards Onage. As they go down the gearbox here, Barnes now in return will have to think about the fact he's going to act as a little bit of a toe magnet or a slipstream pull for Lee and Ferrier behind. But I think Barnes also, he's got the pace advantage here, so making the move nice and early before the Porsche curve is not going to bore him too much. In fact, you can see that gap of 3.5 cents. It is closing little by little as Lee gets through in 2.5 cents now, so they begin their rise into the braking zone for the first Porsche curve. But there, Lee now starting to fall back the dirty and naturally compromising the front end rotation. With Porsche, they made the way on through the double left in 24-25, and now Barnes trying to break away here. I think Lee is falling back towards Ferrier gradually as they roll away through the Corvette curves. But they made the way on out. We have had some other moments occur elsewhere on circuit, including crowd to try and get replay of it into the due order. But as we do see Barnes now starting to break away, it's still Cope ahead essentially as they make their way into the second half of this race. We've already cleared 15 minutes, and with that 4 laps, we have got at least another 4 laps to go. We reckon it will be another 5 laps in actuality, because we will creep on to what is the 9th lap before we see the clock strike 30 minutes. And as Cope leads the way ahead, essentially the gap is now 7.5 tenths as they make their way into the Dunlop chicane once again. But as they do, meanwhile looking further back, we do have a growing battle here between Slow and Steady Racing and Piers the OG and the number 11 driver from the United Kingdom for Slow and Steady Racing versus what is Tim Williams. This is a P8 running the old-fashioned Golf livery there. That's a throwback to classic colours if I've ever seen them. Classic Porsche colours, that is, as the SAS Racing driver makes his way up to the inside here. Into the chicane versus Williams. Williams turns in, but he finds OG there's got the run on the inside and therefore has to give him the space. But then it just squeezes him slightly off apex, and that means that Williams is able to hold his line, and to be fair, Williams there allowed to do so, given the fact OG was only about an inch or two alongside initially and then able to get about a third in. But as they make the way on through the S's here right now, Williams definitely under a lot of pressure in this battle for P8. I think he wants to go hunting after Harrington, for the simple reason that Harrington's lap time is not too far faster compared to the pair as they make the way on around. But this battle between the two of them is costing the time and giving Jacob Harrington an opportunity to steer clear as they make the way on to the first part of the Moles End Straight. But powering the way on down, it's going to be now a little bit of a look there from the OG as they make the way down towards the first chicane. He's going to look to the inside, Williams on the outside here, side by side. Long run to go. It's going to be a battle on the brakes here, but keep in mind, of course, this is the first of 3 straights in succession on Mulsanne, and then we have the run up towards Indianapolis. And who wants to be the leader of this pair? That's the thing. And really, you want to be the second car in the run up towards Indianapolis for the simple reason, coming out of Mulsanne corner, that's where you've got the longest run that's unbroken and uninterrupted. And if you're forced to go around the outside, you're going to have the best opportunity to go around the outside to get ahead for the inside run of Indianapolis. As they make the way down towards the second chicane again now, Georgie holding the line. Williams thinks about it, but I think Williams here knows what game he needs to play, and that is waiting until Mulsanne, and therefore just staying behind for the second chicane as they roll the way on out this time. And they are losing a little bit of time to Harrington. Harrington now standing always a further half a second ahead, the gap up to 2.7 seconds as they make their way down towards Mulsanne, but still feeling comfortable as they power on through. And as they do, just build on the speed once more, and we'll now see whether Williams decides to look for it this time or whether he's just going to wait as we jump on board with the 797 driver from the United Kingdom, and they're backing off nice and early. Well, he's proving providence to the words we said earlier as Dorji goes a little bit deep there, but Williams in return is a bit hesitant to get on the throw initially. He will now gain, but he's going to make it hard for himself as he's giving himself a lot of space to have to pull back. 4 attempts they made the way onto the accelerators, and now going for the first king, it's down to 2 attempts, gap is halved. Coming up towards the second king shortly. Now where will Mr. Orji put the car versus Williams? He's going to put it in the middle of the road. Williams now has to make a move. Does he go to the outside? No. That's what Orji wants to hold the line. Therefore Williams backs off and decides to wait. And Harrington now increasing his advantage to these two. And I think their fight is definitely giving Harrington every opportunity to hold on to P7 at this point as they make the way out of Indianapolis up into Arnage. And Williams here not able to make the move we thought was coming as they exit the corner. Orji goes a little bit deep, but Williams in return with a little bit of power oversteer there. So both drivers making small mistakes, but it's going the way to Orji currently as they roll their way up towards turn at number 23. Meanwhile, we do look back up to Philip Lee versus Russell Barnes. This is the battle for P3. And as they make their way through the left-hander there of what is turn at number 27, the first of the Corvette curves, and now through the 2 kings to complete the Corvette curves. Well, you can see here the number 17 driver from the US of A holding on versus Barnes as they make their way into the fourth chicane to the moment. The gap to the leaders now standing almost 5 seconds to essentially cope. The Olympus Esports drivers having had a little bit of a hiatus in their battle recently. You can see them there in the foreground of the camera as essentially sets the fastest lap of the race of 49.607. Lee sets a 50.219, his best lap of the race so far. But the race leaders lapping about 6 to 7 tenths faster on average compared to their peers. And Barnes just having to wait in the wings behind in P4 as he continues to try and harass and harry the P3 driver of Lee. As they make the way over the rise and now down towards the S's, we have an opportunity to take a look back at what happened a couple of laps ago with regards to 2 drivers that started with Gordon Wallin, who dropped a long way down the order but is recovering, and this is what happened to the Swedish driver. Was the guy driver was making their way down towards the first Bolton chicane by the looks of things on the brakes. and well, something's gone very wrong. In fact, it takes a lot of apex curve. The car gets unsettled and has to lock the brakes up to get it stopped in time, albeit feathering the brakes off the lock there. It's an unfortunate incident. And then what happens at Brad Crouch a little bit later on the lap? Well, this was Brad Crouch versus, at the time, I believe it was Piers D'Orgy going into Indianapolis corner, and a bit of netco contact there for the RPM Racing driver. Very unfortunate. There was no contact between the cars as we could see. In fact, that was, yes, it was with D'Orgy. But in the end, both drivers having to come in together due to a bit of internet connectivity, and therefore it not working out for them. But still, they'll get back to racing, and that's why we do have one fast repair available as our drivers now make their way to the final third of this race. We return to your live pictures as well, and as we do, well, here is the continued battle for P3. As you see, the race leaders there battling, and it's Coe versus Senshi once again. But as they make the way on in, then we look back to Barnes versus Lee, and Barnes tucking in behind here as he waits his turn. The finding speed.com driver, he's got all the speed in hand, but the thing he needs most right now is the right place to make the move as he rolls on out. And coming up towards the Moles, and now he'll think about it, but he'll also think about the fact he's got a very long straight awaiting him in the run up towards Indianapolis, and that's where he needs to get ahead and shut the door. But as he powers his way on down towards Moles, and meanwhile we've got Williams versus D'Orgy off camera, still battling for P8, and Wallin versus Olivieri starting to come together for the battle for P12. So we've got these little battle starts to really build up once again. A lot of drivers who are not in battles necessarily, just finding their pace, and well, as we do look to the top four here, roaring their way past our stationary cameramen. We're right now the number 64 car of Cope holding on to that lead gap, essentially standing at 2 tenths. So they make their way for the second kick. But as they head up towards the run into Indianapolis now, so she's going to look to the inside. Well, it's going to be another exchange between them, 2 wide on entry. Will they be 2 wide all the way through to completion? Cope now holds the inside of Indianapolis corner. So she's still carrying the momentum, and he's going to go all in here in R9. So she could get this, but he backs out in the end. He can't quite get the overspeed he needs to the braking zone. As now they make the way out of the corner. Meanwhile, further behind, Barnes P3 ahead of Philip Lee. Well, Barnes has found his way through. Got that done into Indianapolis corner off camera. And as they make the way now up towards the Porsche curves, you can see a bit further back, that's Dan Sperrier, and then what is Michael Vanahan trying to close up as quickly as they can. But the drivers here still running nose to tail of Barnes versus Lee. Lee's thinking about a return move here. Can't quite get it as they make the way into the Porsche curves. But as they do, let's take a look back at the move that Barnes made on Lee only moments ago. Run down towards Indianapolis. Paul Barnes may go for it here, but he was made to work for it by going around the outside. And as they made the way into the right hand of Barnes, just sweeping ahead there and timing that to perfection. To be fair, Lee being a little bit obliging there and realising that Barnes was going to try and cut across the nose, but at the same time, Lee not making it easy for Barnes, and that's how Barnes got P3. Come back to your live pictures now. Drivers making the way onto another lap, going on to what for them will now be lap number 7 with 7 minutes left on the clock. So therefore we have got effectively what will be another 2 laps remaining. So my estimate originally of what there being a grand total of 9 laps was incorrect. We are going to have 8 laps of racing here in our first race of the day. We do say hello in the YouTube chat there to Logan and McKinsey. Good evening to you, Logan. In fact, good afternoon to you, because I believe you're based in the USA, if my memory serves me correctly. Hope you're doing well. And indeed, as I try to make the way on around here, Logan McKinsey, I think coming out in support of a number of American drivers, but in particular, this man, Samuel Bernardi, a peer and friend who raced in a league alongside in the middle of the pack, racing the Cruising USA GR86 Championship, and indeed, good friends in that league. And here to cheer one another on as we see Bernardi making his way on through. He's got Paul Munn behind him in this little scrap for P16, as these drivers have both had moments on the circuit where it's not quite worked out. Bernardi recently having an off-track, quite a sizable one in fact, and Munn involved in that incident earlier on where he's had to take a fast repair on the car, but Munn trying to recover, Bernardi trying to hold on, and as they make the way out to the Corvette curves here, well, Bernardi going a little bit deep. Munn's going to think about this now as they make the way out towards the Ford chicanes on what is for them lap number 6 coming to its very end, and as they make the way down towards the braking zone, Munn's looking on the inside, but Bernardi holds the racing line here and says no you don't, as they make the way through, riding the way now through the second chicane onto what is their penultimate lap as we understand it, and the way on towards turn number 1. You can see Munn falling back there to 6 steps off, but I get the feeling that gap may be coming down in due course, given the fact that Munn did out-qualify Bernardi by the best part of 6th place in the grid. He did have a little bit more pace in his favour. I think right now Bernardi doing everything to hold Munn at bay. If he's able to hold him at bay all the way to the end of the race, it's certainly going to take a lot of fortitude, and he will be able to pull this off. But as he makes his way down towards the exit right now, Munn still 8 tenths behind, not only the best of runs for the Dunlop chicane, but knowing there's a lot to come in terms of the fact they've got 4 long straights to go to fight together, and as they make way into a Tetridge, we're now bringing that gap down as Munn really pushed on here, getting out that halfway to half a second as they exit Tetridge. Bernardi having a good run, but by comparison, Munn absolutely delivering in that most. And as they power the way on down, we look to the blimp camera, a lovely distant view. That gives you the perspective of how long the straight is as they continue to charge on down. And well, as they make the way on for it, it's going to be Munn who looks around the outside here in the run down towards the chicane. I don't think Bernardi's really got a response right now as they head in towards the braking zone. And in fact, Bernardi decides to tuck back in as Munn gets the move done initially. But remember, we have got 3 more straights to go here. And Bernardi can play his cards right and just play the patience game as they make the way on through. And immediately then, coming back at Munn as they power their way up through the gearboxes and charge it all the way through underneath the Goodyear blimp. Only one of them left in the world, in the real world. Thankfully, we'll have it captured in Immortality on iRacing as they make the way on down. Bernardi coming out of the toe early, but I wonder whether this is all part of a plan here to make Munn hold the lead position for a bit longer, given the fact they've got a 21-second gap to the next driver up the road of what is Nick Ewers. Therefore, they're not really batting Ewers at the moment unless Ewers makes a major error, which will drop him back towards them. Instead, their focus is on this battle for what is P16, P17. Keep in mind, reverse grid will mean that whoever finishes P17 starts on the second row of the grid P4. Albeit, I think our drivers want to gain every place they can to get every point they can over the 2 races of today. But as Bernardi looks alongside here versus Munn, thinking about it once again, but decides to be patient, and well, very respectful patience here from the American as he makes the one to braking, backs off a little bit early here, and now we will see that run going up towards Indianapolis. But as he timed it right, the gap is 6 tenths as they exit the corner. He'll now build up the speed as they start to get closer and closer together. But I think Bernardi may have just left this a little too far. He is gaining, but nowhere near at the rate he would have liked to, as they make their way up towards the second kink on the run down towards Indianapolis. And that gap, I think now, is too much for Bernardi to bridge in time. But as they make the way on through, meanwhile, we do look to your race leaders who've gone on to the final lap of racing in this first race of today. And indeed, with only 3 minutes to go and the lap time of 3 minutes 49 for these guys on their best laps and 3 minutes 51 on their last laps, we are going to see the race end with 8 laps accounted for. And Daniel Sedgey continues to lead here ahead of Thomas Cope as they charge their way on down into the S's. He's found his way ahead, and now Cope's going to try and come back for Olympus Esports. The 2 teammates here battling hard, and then Russell Barnes P3 has broken away from Philip Lee. But meanwhile, further down the order, we have had an instant for this man, Jacob Harrington. He's not lost any places as a result of it, but he has had an off track. And this is what happened to the driver at MP7, who's remained there for slow and steady racing, but perhaps has just been a little bit shaken by it. Making his way to the Porsche curves, coming on through here. The distant camera shot will tell the tale. The rear of the car letting go, catches it on the gravel and just stops it there. A little bit of rub to the barrier, but that's not going to hurt the aero of the car too much. And Harrington there getting away with what for others could have been a complete disaster. Well, good catch there from Harrington as I try to charge on through. But meanwhile, return to live pictures. And here is Mikael Andreasen, who's been up and down the field all day in this race after the unfortunate incident on lap 1 and a further incident on lap number 2. And right now, all over the back appears to Orgy as they make the way on to the Miles End Straight. Side by side they go. 2 great friends off the circuit, both slow and steady racing drivers. Both looking to get the upper hand of one another here as they make the way down towards the first chicane. But as they do, Andreasen right now holds the lead of the 2 of them. Orgy holding behind as they make the way up towards turn number 11 in towards the right hander they go. They've got Brad Crouch only 2 seconds up the road from they may yet be able to bring Brad Crouch into this battle and turn it into a three-way fight for P8 rather than a two-way fight for P9. We'll have to wait and see if that's the way it plays out in practice. They now make the way down the second part of the straight, but as they do here, Andreas will be hoping he's able to break away in time. Well, the gap staying at half a second here. Dorji now tucks into the toe. In fact, it does look as though Andreasen actually gaining more here as Orgy falling back. I wonder if the Briton behind has got some damage on the car that's limiting his top end speed. We have seen Orgy have a couple of off tracks and also an instant earlier on with Brad Couch in fact. I think that aero damage may be now manifesting itself as they make the way out on the second chicane and the gap up to 9 tenths, and I think that's where it's going to stay, at least if not grow longer. As they power their way on through. Meanwhile, we look back towards the front of the field, and well, we do see here Daniel Sedgey and Thomas Cope, albeit Sedgey ahead of Cope. Cope's been leading to the majority of this race, but Sedgey has found his way on through as they make the way on around, and this was the move for the lead that was made a lap ago. As we take a look back, it was in the run up towards the Porsche curves. Sedgey was inside here in the drag race in towards the corner. And as the number 6 driver went all in here for the move, Cope tried to hold him around the outside, but Seji said, no, you don't. They made it too wide into the corner initially, and then coming into the double left, Cope decided to try and push it. Went on the grass, however, caught the car just in time, and that's how Seji took the lead. But as we return to your live pictures now, going into the same quarters once again, and Will Cope are very close to the back of Seji here as they make the way through the double left. It's going to be a quick run on through. The clock has hit 30 minutes. This race is almost said and done. They've only got the end of this lap to come, and as they roll the way into the Corvette curves, it's 3 attempts at the moment. Cope's looking on fire here, but Seji right now is going to be stoking his defence. He'll probably dig in as they make the way in towards the Ford chicane. The flash of lights are for Cope. He's throwing every trick in the book at his teammate and friend, but right now Seji's not falling for any of it as they go through one. They go for the second chicane as they roll the way out. It's going to be Daniel Seji who takes the win in the first race of the day here at Le Mans, ahead of Thomas Cope P2. It's an Olympus Esports 1-2, and FindingSpeed.com's Russell Barnes completes the podium ahead of Philip Lee P4, and it'll be Dan Ferrier P5, the Scotsman, finishing off the top 5 in style for Sloan Steady Racing, with Michael Lanahan P6 there, the privateer from the US of A. And then very shortly, in fact in about 20 seconds time, we will see our next drivers make the way on through in the form of Jacob Harrington, who after falling off the circuit a little while ago, still holding on to P7, and right now nursing the car on through to the finish line. Well, right now the 40 driver's got all the time in the world to do so. He comes on through in a valiant P7 ahead of Brad Crouch, who did well to recover to P8 after that incident in Indianapolis, and then it'll be Mikel Andreasen P9 ahead of Piers Orgy, who completes your top 10. Tim Williams P11 and a fighting P11 for Williams, and it'll be Adam Olivieri who completes his run to P12, the privateer, and started P14 on the grid. Vilda Wallin finishes at P13 in the end. The Swede, I think, having the pace to inside the top 10 for the guy driver involved in 1 or 2 incidents and costing her time. And Jens Larsen P14. And as he comes across the line, it'll then be Nick Ewers who finishes at P15, the number 55 driver there, the privateer, and a great drive ahead of Paul Munn at P16. And Munn has cleared Bernardi, with that Bernardi now 5 seconds behind. I think for Paul Munn from Sloan Steady Racing, just gradually bringing the car on through, as I think that in front of him is Steve Jans, who's going to finish a lap down, but is going to finish P19, in it to win it all the way through. That's what it's all about. And then it will be Paul Munn who finishes P16 on the lead lap. And then very shortly we will see Samuel Bernardi coming through for P17, the privateer from the US of A. And then we've got one more drive to come still. They're making their way up towards the Porsche curves at the moment, and it's none other than, what is there, Stuart Pearson with the Top Cat logo there. I believe that's his nickname, or at least that's his favourite cartoon. Indeed, quite a classic cartoon at Top Cat as the Sloan Steady Racing driver makes his way around. It's been a difficult first race of the day for the number 13 driver, but as he makes his way on around here through the Porsche curves, he'll know that with that P18 finish, he'll be starting effectively P3 on the grid for our second race that is to come, the full reverse grid feature race, 60 minutes in duration. That's a big 6-0, not 1-6, 60 minutes. And with that, we do believe there may be a pit stop in there if our drivers need it, or they can do it on a single set of tyres and fuel if they feel comfortable in doing so. But as Pearson makes his way to the line there, keeping it together, all in the aid of the campaign against living miserably. He crossed the line at P18 there, the Englishman, as he crosses the line. What a first race of the day, ladies and gentlemen. And whilst we do have a 5-minute window in which to get warmed up for our second race, let's take you through those race results. For after an absolutely superb opening at 30 minutes of racing here today at Le Mans, Daniel Seji taking the win for Olympus Esports by 4 attempts in the end over teammate Thomas Cope. Behind the pair of them making it a 1-2, Russell Barnes P3, and therefore that's your podium of Seji, Cope and Barnes, with Seji picking up the prize, the first prize of the day, which is a 3-month Race Lab subscription for being the winner of the sprint race. P4, Philip Lee, the privateer ahead of Dan Ferrier for Sloan Steady Racing, and then we have Michael Lanahan just outside the top 5, P6, ahead of Sloan Steady Racing's Jacob Harrington, with Brad Crouch at RPM Racing doing well to recover to P8. Mikel Andreasen and Piers Orgy completing your top 10 there, with Mikel Andreasen, much like what we've seen there from MDC 3755 in the Twitch chat saying, and a very good observation, a great recovery drive from Andreasen, who at one point was right at the back of the field on the open lap after an open lap incident, and Piers Orgy recovering to P10, head of Sausage Dodgers Racing at Tim Williams P11, and the privateer Adam Olivieri at P12. Vilda Wallin also making a good recovery drive the Swede from Gaia for P13 ahead of Jens Larsen, with the privateer featured a fellow privateer Nick Ewers who completed the top 15, and then looking to the completion of the top 20 and all the drives on the grid, Pullman P16 ahead of Samuel Bernardi in a great little rivalry between them on the final lap, with Stuart Pearson P18 for Salon Steady Racing, one lap ahead of Steve Jans, and then ahead of behind the privateer we should say, having to retire the car after what was one lap due to technical issues with the car, Patrick Thompson at P20 there for Olympus Esports. And that's our first race of the day complete, ladies and gentlemen, and whilst the drivers are in the want, we'd just like to remind you we've got one more race to go today, and that is the feature race, 60 minutes in duration, all in aid of Campaign Against Living Miserably. This race event being brought to you by SAS Racing in partnership with Takona and Sim Racing Community for July 2023. It's the Who Cares Wins charity event, and indeed it's all about caring about mental health. It's time to talk about mental health, it most definitely is so, and as our drivers make the way out of the circuit at the moment, well, in fact most of them decided to stay in the pit lane. It was a fast and furious first race of the day, but now everybody just getting themselves set, and I believe that does mean we have a time or two for what is an interview with one or two drivers, and we will try and get a word with a couple of drivers whilst they are waiting to go racing again. And I think, in fact, we will start off with our race winner from our first race of the day of none other than Daniel Sedgey, as we do try to catch a word with him if he is available at this time. We are just trying to find out. And in fact, I do believe he's not available, unfortunately. I think he stepped away at the moment and decided just to take a bit of a breather. Completely understandable. So instead, we are going to come to one of our other drivers who was racing around there. And I believe we may be able to get a word from what was, unless I'm very much mistaken, our third place finisher of Russell Barnes. And in fact, as he does sit in the pit lane at the moment, we will get a word from him now, as we do get a patch through to his car. And as we have a quick word with Russell right now, apologies for grabbing you from the voice chat with the other drivers, Russell, but we just want a quick word from you. Congratulations on your third place in our first race of the day. It looked tough out there, but solid pace throughout, and I think third place was what you were targeting in the end.
Yeah, I'm really pleased with third place, actually. Yeah, cheers, man. I think, you know, I knew that I had the pace to keep up and stay in draft with him. I made a dumb, late-breaking mistake just to bridge a little gap that had developed. I locked up the tyres. That was me out. But I did manage to claw my way back from fifth. It was tight, but we got there in the end. But yeah, I think on pace, it's a good, close race. But of course, with the reverse grid, it's going to be interesting to see who navigates it the best.
Oh, most definitely. And whilst you're getting ready for that reverse grid, just a quick question. Of course, this event all being about mental health and in aid of Campaign Against Living Miserably. What does mental health mean to you and the guys at findingspeed.com?
Yeah, I mean, it is something that's close to me personally and my family. I don't want to go into too many details, but suffice it to say, when Paul invited me along for this, I couldn't say no. You know, I'm a fan of what Paul does with Slow and Steady Racing. I think it's brilliant that he's took a risk to put this on, because it's not an easy thing to pull off. There's no guarantee that anyone's going to turn up. So it's fantastic that it's been super successful so far, and I'm chuffed to bits to support it, and I'd do the same again.
Well, Russell, we're really glad to have you with us on the grid today, and we'll let you go back to the car now and get ready to go racing. 15 seconds away. We wish you the best luck in race number 2.
Nice one. Cheers, buddy.
So hearing there quickly from Russell Barnes from findingspeed.com, and indeed we're only 5 seconds away from going at racing now, and he thinks it's going to be interesting in the reverse grid feature. Well, let's find out, ladies and gentlemen, as all of our drivers make the way to the grid one more time today. And of course, we do have post-race interviews coming up after our races. We're going to have 4 of our drivers volunteer their time if they're available to do so. But here we go then. Here it goes, race number 2. So as our drivers make their way onto the grid for the 60-minute feature, this is how they'll line up. The reverse grid starts off with Patrick Thompson from Olympus Esports, who had a difficult first race of the day, having to retire 7 laps in the end, and therefore he starts on pole. He's joined on the front row by privateer Steve Jans, with Stuart Pearson starting at P3 and thereby on the second row. The Slow and Steady Racing driver is joined by Samuel Bernardi, who starts P4, the privateer, head of Pullman for Slow and Steady Racing, and Nick Ewers, the privateer. Now on row number 4, it's Jens Larsen, the privateer, ahead of Gaia's Vilda Wallin. Then on row number 5, to complete complete the top 10, it's Adam Olivieri and Tim Williams, the Sausage Dodgers racing driver there, looking to battle his way through the field once again, with Piers de Orgy started P11, best of rest down the 6th row for Slow and Steady Racing alongside his teammate Mikkel Andreasen. Then on row at number 7, it's Brad Crouch and Jacob Harrington for RPM Racing and Woody's Slow and Steady Racing respectively, with the privateer Michael Lanahan and Dan Sferrer for Slow and Steady Racing on the row behind. Philip Lee and Russell Barnes make up the penultimate row of the grid, the privateer the FindingSpeed.com's driver, and then on the very last row of the grid, Thomas Cope and Daniel Sedgley. But the grid is set, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for us to go racing. 1 red light, 2 red lights, 3 red lights, 4 red lights, 5 red lights. And it's lights out and away we go for our second race of the day as Patrick Thompson has a very slow start and everyone has to take evasive manoeuvres, but as they make the way away, Steve Jans leads as they head into Dunlop Curve, but look at Samuel Bernardi on the inside as they head up towards the braking zone for the Dunlop chicane. Bernardi takes the lead, Jans on the outside, they'll try and hold the inside into the chicane under braking, but everybody hot on the brakes here. Jans onto the gravel, scoots across the road, he avoids contact with other drivers and parks the car up there to avoid causing an incident. Very smart move from the American, but meanwhile even smarter move from Samuel Bernardi to take the lead of the race, but immediately Patrick Thompson behind us. That's Nick Ewers off in the distance. Ewers going absolutely flying in towards the barrier there. Very unfortunate for Ewers. We'll take a look back very shortly, and as they make the way up towards the Mulsanne, with that Tetra Rouge, and then onto the Mulsanne straight, it's going to be Samuel Bernardi who leads, but Patrick Thompson all over the back of him. It's definitely been an eventful start as we've had Thomas Cope have to be towed to the pits. I wonder what's happened to Cope, and as our drivers make the way on down, well, meanwhile side by side there between Bernardi and Patrick Thompson as they roar their way down the Mulsanne straight, and well right now Thompson and Bernardi side by side as they power their way up towards the first chicane, and neither driver here wanting to back out as night time descends. A bit of contact and the two of them have come together, and with that I think everyone now has to take evasive manoeuvres as Thompson's car comes back across the road. And it's a disaster. There's more cars being collected as they make the way on through. Well, Tim Williams survives the scene of the incident, and I think with that, it's anyone's guess who's going to win this race at this point in time. We've got a lot of drivers having to be towed to the pits, and when we've now got a grand total of which I do believe 6 cars in the pit lane, and Michael Lanahan's car's not been able to make it out of the pit lane so far to go racing. Meanwhile, Patrick Thompson's car's now being repaired, and meanwhile, Tim Williams here leads this race for Sausage Dodgers Racing. You could not make this up. But as they make their way down towards the second chicane, and meanwhile, Brad Crouch on a charge here and started from P13, trying to pick up place for RPM Racing. Now his next target is Dan Sferrier, and as I try to make the way on around, meanwhile, we've also got making early ground. Daniel Sedgley, he's already up towards P9, is the England C-Sports driver, as he makes his way on through. But it's a long charge here as our drivers push on through, and as they do right now, everybody absolutely bolted to the stables now. It turns out wanted to try and pick up places with the incidents that have occurred. Speaking of which, we've got a change here. Steve Jans going quite slowly, still some damage on the car. Alternatively, something wrong with the car and letting go on through Paul Munn. Piers de Orgy is looking for the move as well, switches back. I think Jans has got damage as Orgy looks up the inside, can't quite find it as they make their through. Jans with a braking error, however, into the back. I think the brakes in that car have seen better days, and into the tyre barrier, no doubt about it. But meanwhile, as we look back to the front of the field, Ferrier still making ground ahead of Jens Larsen now, as they make the way on down towards the Indianapolis corner, and we've definitely had the best part of a quarter of the field end up in an instant. We've still got 14 drivers running out of the circuit currently as they make the way in towards the right, left of 18 and 19, through they go, and well, this is a long race. This is double the duration of our initial 30-minute sprint, and therefore it's all about stamina here as our drivers make the way all around. But as we can see there, Ferry Moon up to P3. His next start is Russell Barnes. Barnes making an absolutely sensational start to come through to P2, and the FindingSpeed.com guy, I don't think he's going to believe his fortune right now. And also, to be fair, to credit to him, his ability to avoid everything that's played out on the road in front of him. But meanwhile, behind Jens Larsen now under pressure from what is their Brad Crouch. Crouch up the inside for RPM Racing to the Porsche curves. It's going to switch back to double left here. I think Larsen going a bit deep as they make the way on through, and Larsen right now acts as a bit of a cork in the bottle as they draw their way in towards the final part of the Porsche curves. And there you can see Philip Lee having to look for a move as they make the way in towards the Corvette curves here. He can't quite find it at the moment. He's going to jump on board with the privateer from the US of A. They're building his way up through the gearbox here, looking for another potential move as they get ready to battle on the brakes. Is he going to be able to find it into the forward chicanes? If he does so, this is going to be a deft piece of work. But in fact, he has to back off there as they roll the way through and come towards the end of the opening lap. But after one lap of racing, it is Tim Williams who leads this race by 3/10 ahead of Russell Barnes P2, Dan Sferrier P3 ahead of Brad Crouch P4, Jens Larsen P5. He follows in behind Crouch there in the second pack with Philip Lee P6, Bill Wallin P7 ahead of Daniel Sedgley P8, Jacob Harrington P9, and then we do have P10 at the moment, Adam Olivieri, who are in a bit of a chase now after the rest of the top 10. Car off the road, and that's Brad Crouch, who's gone round there at the chicane. I wonder if there was some contact that's aided him in that regard, or whether that's under his own volition. We'll have to find out in due course, which will mean he drops to the back of the top 10. In fact, Paul Munn's now going to take P10 off of him, as Munn goes down the outside there into the S's. Crouch now P11, Pierce or GP12, Nick Ewers, I should say, P13, and then currently Lee in the pit lane. Steve Yans with damage to the car. Something's gone wrong with the Privateer 72 machine. We've also got Patrick Thompson, Stuart Pearson, Samuel Bernardi, Mikel Andreas and Thomas Cope all in the pit lane, and I think all having repair work done to their cars at the moment. And well, if there's not a fast repair available by looks of things, there is a long sit in the pits after being towed. But as our drivers make the way on down, Russell Barnes here leading now ahead of Dan Sverrier as they make the way up towards the first chicane of Mulsanne, and as they do, well, Barnes and Ferrer really trying to break away from everybody else and trying to turn this into a two-way race. But the one driver they'll be wary of is none other than Daniel Sedgey. We see here making a move on Tim Williams. Williams going very slowly there. I believe that may be an automated track limit infringement penalty that he's having to serve, aka a slowdown penalty to put it in simple terms. And as they make the way down towards the second chicane, right now Sedgey pushing along Larson. He's giving Larson a little bit of boost to say, come on, I need you to go forward for me. I'm going to give you a little bit of bump draft, which you normally see in NASCAR, not in GTE class racing, but it is possible. Bit of contact there between Sedgey and Larson. Larson going slowly there in return now to back the car off, but Sedgey absolutely gunning it here as they make the way down towards Mulsanne corner now, and Larson literally being charged around by everyone. That's Vilda Watling and also Jacob Harrington on the right of your picture, Larson on the left of your picture, effectively going too wide astern as they make the way up towards the breakers over Mulsanne. And as they do, it's definitely been an eventful lap number 2 so far, and for Jens Larson it's been one where places are being lost left, right and centre. As they come through the right-hander, credit to Larson right now, negotiating a tricky scenario and keeping the car calm and consistent, and that's something in itself when you've got a lot of drivers around you who are technically faster because of the reverse grid, just keeping you cool and carry on, and that's exactly what the Danishman's doing right now as he makes his way on through as they power the way up towards the Indianapolis corner. Meanwhile, Vilda Walling trying to chase down now Leon Sedgley, breaking away from Harrington and Williams, and speaking to Tim Williams, Williams taking a peek there versus Harrington in towards Indianapolis they go. Can the Sausage Dodgers racing driver find a way round, or is he going to have to wait? He'll have to do the latter in fact as he hits the anchors once again. But right now Williams definitely eager to make a little progress there. As you see a wobble for Harrington, just putting the rear right tyre outside of the curve onto the gravel. That's unsettled the car. He's caught it in time, but he won't want to make that mistake again in a hurry for the simple reason, if he does that again he may find himself on the inside wall. But as they make the way out of Arnage and now up towards the Forge curves. Meanwhile, looking from them to Daniel Sedgley right now ahead of Philip Lee. These two noses to tail in the battle for P3. And as they make the way on for into the Forge curves here, it does look to be Sedgley right now controlling this versus Lee, albeit I think Lee would like to say something different to the fact that he'll be trying to come on through. Meanwhile, having come out the pits, effectively a lap down at the moment, we do have Bernardi, Thompson, Andreasen and Pearson who all left the pit lane. You could see him there, albeit I think Janssen had to come into the pit due to further damage on the car that he's still trying to resolve, which is very unfortunate for Steve Jans, who did have a good start to this race. But as our drivers make the way in to the Ford chicanes on screen here, Sedgley holding ahead of what is Philip Lee as they make the way on to lap number 3. Now powering the way out at this point, we do get an opportunity to take a look back at some of the open lap incidents. In particular, we do get to take a look back at what happened to Nick Ewers at the start of the race as it all went wrong going into the S's. This was in the run over the rise, and as he made his way through, I believe there may have been some contact with the car on the outside. We're not quite sure which car that is, but we can see Nick Ewers in that contact in the end. And well, for Ewers, very unfortunate for the 55 driver just being turned across the front of another rival. We take another look back of what exactly happened there. And in fact, as we take a look here earlier on, and as Ewers made his way up to speed, that was where the contact happened. As we were looking at Tim Williams there, unfortunately our replay cameraman not looking at the right car, but the 55 driver being sent to the wall, very unfortunate. And then we had a further incident a little bit later on, and that was, I believe, for a number of drivers going down the Mulsanne straight. And in fact, as we continue to look at this replay footage now, you'll see it all starts to go towards the front of the group with Samuel Bernardi versus was Patrick Thompson. They made the way on down as the two drivers ran side by side. Bernardi starts to come across like a bit of contact initially, and then they come back together, and this is the flashpoint here as they go all in. Contact between the two, and Bernardi loses control with the contact of Thompson's car, and then, well, the rest ends up being where everyone else comes into the scene of incident. Pearson being collected. We also saw there as Bernardi went for a bit of a barrel roll, managed to land it successfully. We never wanted to do that. They all went wrong for the drivers there. Mikko Andreasen caught up in it as well, and that's how we did end up losing 4 drivers to a lap down, having to be towed back to the pits. But as we now return to your live pictures, ladies and gentlemen, still plenty of racing to come here as we have an incident for Piers or G as well on the opening lap. We're now settling down into a rhythm, and we'll speak of that rhythm as we look to Jens Larsen as he chases after with Adam Olivieri and Tim Williams. Larsen trying to come back here for P7. He may not be the fastest driver out there, but he's been very consistent and calm with his racing. Now doing well in the number 4 car as they power their way down towards West Molesang corner, looking around the outside of Olivieri, who's off camera on the right side. You see him briefly for a moment there as they make their way through the right-hander. Olivieri defending as Williams goes round. All 3 drivers come together, and oh goodness me, that is not a good moment for any of them as they all end up in disaster. Also, I think there appears that G getting it wrong in the rear of the picture, and we'll take a look back at what exactly set that off very shortly. But meanwhile, looking to the front of the field, this is Barnes versus Ferrier, and Barnes still holding the lead versus Ferrier as they made the way on around the left-hand of turn number 19 at Indianapolis, and into Arnage they go as they head onto the brakes here. As we see Seji and Lee behind, still battling close. 4 seconds is the gap between the 2 lead pairs, and as they come out of an arch corner right now, it does seem to be that gap between the pairs are stabilised, and the gaps within the pairs are stabilising as well. It is tense, it's terse, and between our drivers right now, there's nothing in it, and I think it's all going to come down to who is able to manage this race in the long haul. As we do see Russell, Barnes and Ferrier here making their way on through the Porsche curves. Dan's Ferrier here definitely keeping Barnes under honest pressure. We do look a bit further back down the order to drivers who are effectively now trying to catch back up to the leaders, and this is in the form of Nick Ewers, who right now running on what is their P17, chasing after Stuart Pearson as they make the way on through. And we'll nose to tail here versus Pearson as they make the way up towards the second chicane of Molesang. And as they do, Ewers falling back to a degree, that gap now 6 tenths and starting to close in the toe. But I get the feeling here the 55 try maybe a long way away from trying to look for the move on Pearson this time around. But meanwhile, Ferrier versus Barnes, as Barnes there having to take a slowdown coming out the final corner, I think, due to the track limits. And as Ferrier takes the lead this race, we've gone to lap number 4 as the number 16 driver here charges on. And it's the breaks over the Dunlop chicane. There's nothing between these two at the moment, albeit there is now 1.5 seconds of a gap. So there is something between these two, in fact, as they make the way on down towards the S's. Dan Ferrier retakes the lead. Keep in mind, of course, Ferrier only finishing was a place behind Barnes last time out in the sprint race. These two very equal pace, but Barnes now trying to come back at him as they make the way into Tetra Rouge this time. We've got Harrington, Williams and Dorji in the pit side. Look out my pit window, and we're going to pit window, I should say, into the pit lane. And as they come on in, I think they've decided to go for their pit stops early. If anybody is going to pit, getting it early and out of the way, maybe a good time to do it today. And as I try to charge on down, well, we do have a moment to take a look back at what happened between, what was it, Tim Williams, Adam Olivier and Jens Larsen at Molesang corner. Only a lap ago, and this is what happened. So making the way into the braking zone, I think Williams here gets into a bit of contact with Olivieri under braking, who overextends, and in return Larsen just has nowhere to go, and Orji has to stop the car to avoid finding into the freeway scene instant. We take a look back from the perspective of Adam Olivieri here as he came down, riding on board with the driver, and well, here you can see the overspeed he had, looked up the inside, went on the brakes, and I think here he's at risk of locking up, so he has to lift the brake off, and it's just a little bit too close to call versus Williams' car, and in the end sends Williams around, but stops the car there to let Williams rejoin and resume the racing without gaining the position. Respectful racing between them, to be fair, but it appears that Orji, I think, will be a little bit frustrated that he came into the scene of an incident but won't find it. But as I try to charge on around, we do see there in the YouTube chat, Thomas Cope saying, my USB hub at Milton's can't race. Would you like an extra commentator? Mr. Cope, I'd be more than happy to have you join me in the commentary booth for the remainder of the racing. And well, I will bring you in here here very shortly, if that's okay with you. Just let me know, give me a thumbs up, and we'll do everything we can to get you in here as the racing charge is on here at Le Mans. But the more the merrier. It's all in the name of charity, of course, ladies and gentlemen. And well, if you do want to donate in support of the cause by Calm, indeed, there's the link available in the YouTube chat, and we'll see that link appear again very shortly in both the YouTube and the Twitch chat. As it does reappear there, I think we will have Mr. Cope making his way into the commentary booth with me shortly, as we do look here to Nick Ewers, who's right now trying to take on Stuart Pearson as they make their way up towards turn number 2. As they head into the braking zone here, both guys still battling the plenty as they make them through, but Ewer's going a bit deep there, and as a result had to recollect the car. But as he powers his way on out, definitely right now for another live privacy, it's a challenging race for him, and one where he's having to just keep the car in check and keep his mind on the race in front. But I can see they're away from Cope to say that he's coming into the commentary booth. In fact, I do believe he is going to join me in the booth now. As I do welcome Olympus Esports, Thomas Cope into the commentary booth. Good evening to you, Thomas. Sounds like a few technical issues, but glad to have you join me in the commentary booth.
Yeah, a few technical issues after that first race. I may have forgotten that a AC unit needs an open window, so my room got very warm, and it has melted my USB hub to not let my wheel use USB anymore. So I couldn't put it up at all. And then yeah, I couldn't race at all, so I've had to restart my PC, which has put me out of the race completely, obviously.
That's very unfortunate, but still, he looked very fast in the first race today. Your teammate Daniel says he's just been able to outpace you to a small degree, and now the second race of the day. If you were out of circuit right now, what would be your big concern for the 60 minutes as we see Barnes and Ferrier battling one another into turns 1 and 2?
I would say tyres. They get very warm going throughout the race, so if you can maintain and manage them throughout the whole race, it's going to be alright. I know Dan's been talking about a lot with maintaining his tyres for the second race, so we'll see if he can do that. Also, obviously, he's got to catch up to the cars ahead, so that's also a bit of an issue for him, so he's going to use up some tyres catching up, but we'll see towards the end of the race. He may make a live action for the final.
Indeed, well, as we see Barnes and Ferrier here batting one another, and behind them we do have your teammate Sergi catching up, because we did have that major incident on the first lap of today, which has really shaken things up. And Sergi right now, I think, not expected to be in P3, and he's closing them down pretty fast.
Yeah, I didn't quite catch what happened on the, because I was still trying to source what happened with my wheel. I couldn't get it to use. So, yeah, I heard there was a lot of drama on the start of the race, but a lot of these drivers they're pretty good, so we'll see what happens throughout the end. Obviously, there's a lot of strategy involved with the pit stop and coming in early, especially if we need to take tyres. I presume some drivers may take tyres throughout the race.
Indeed, and as we charge into the second quarter of this race at the moment, the closest battle is Barnes and Ferris. We'll stay with that for the time being, and we're very right now in a bit of back and forth. Of course, Barnes making a mistake earlier on, which cost him the lead. Mistake at the chicane, and the slowdown that came with it. But now, as we jump on board with Ferrier here, making his way on through, coming all the way down towards the Mosaic corner. Of course, this race as well seems time progression going into the night here at Le Mans. And how does that change the race? Because there is local lighting at the start-finish straight, and the opening course and last couple of courses, there's no lighting necessarily off into the woodland.
No, it gets pretty dark around this track. I mean, I don't think it'll be late enough to get full pitch black darkness like you would in a 24, but I think it'll still get dark enough where you'll lose sight of your braking marker. So some of these drivers may struggle if they haven't practiced or even have the knowledge of where they might be braking, so that might shape up the end of the race a little bit extra for these guys.
There's going to be a change of four as the headlights are on between the guys right now as they charge their way down into the map list this time. Dan Ferrier right now just staying right there with Barnes all the way through and around, so he made the way up toward our large corner, and well, nothing between us. We've got Nick Ewers into the pit lane, decides to come in a little bit. I think Ewers has had a couple of moments so far. In fact, this is his second visit to the pit lane. I wonder whether he's got some repair work to do to the car.
Maybe, I think he might be involved in that lap 1 crash, so we're not sure on that one, but yeah, obviously a lot of cars were getting involved in that. You already see what, there's 5 cars out of the race right now?
Indeed, 5 cars out at the moment. He unfortunately lost Lanahan before he could go race, and I think not able to get the car out there. We lost yourself before the issues you described earlier, a bit of a hot issue, if you will. And then we had Jans Bernardi and Ewers Bernardi being right at the forefront of that incident on lap 1. But from instance to Bannon right now, Ferret absolutely having to push those front tyres going through the Corvette curves. A bit of dirty air as well, not helping him as he makes his way out of the Corvette curves this time around. And just what's it like with regards to the dirty air of these cars from your experience, having driven them at a highly competitive level? How does it feel on that front end as you're turning through those medium speed apexes?
It's definitely not nice. I would definitely say that's what lost me the race. I don't know if you picked up on it, but coming onto the Mulsanne for the first time, I got a slowdown because it was the first time running behind the car onto that corner, so I didn't know how bad it was going to be. I expected some dirty air, but even then I still managed to go run too wide and still picked up the slowdown, causing me to lose that race really.
Pick that up, and slowdown's really been a big factor in this race in terms of you can be leading and then suddenly pick one up and you lose out, and we saw Bonds have that only moments to go as they make their way through Tetrud. This time it's going to be a drag race, and well, do you think Ferry's going to go for it this time?
It's a wise move for Ferrer, and I think he has been doing a bit of it, is saving the fuel. I think he has been saving quite a bit of fuel so that when he comes to the pit stop, he'll be able to have a shorter time in the pits over Barnes and everyone else on track as well, so it's a wise move for himself. We'll see if it pays off. I'm not sure if that is 100% what he's doing, but looking at him not overtaking with the slipstream, to me it's pretty obvious that he's trying to save the fuel right now.
Playing his bets here with regards to where he's positioning the car, and like you say, just conserving some fuel, running the slipstream, although Seiji now trying to catch up and only 1.3 seconds off. And just with regards to that toe distance, it looks as though that slipstream starts to be felt around a second down the straights around here. But is it a bit more than that? You start to get a sniff of it, say 1.5 seconds away?
You do get a bit of it at 1.5, not a lot. Definitely when you get within at least a second, you really start picking up the full benefits. And you really start pulling in on the car ahead. You'll notice some of the cars just really making up time. With that slipstream, really.
Made the way now down towards Mulsanne corner here. Absolutely storming on down towards the braking zone, and more Barnes and Ferris staying as they are. Seiji trying to close up, gap now 1.3 seconds. And as they come out, Philippi 2 seconds behind. This top 4 really starting to charge up into the distance. And then looking at P5, we've got Vilda Wallin, who are having a difficult first race today. The flying Swede from what is the Gaia team there, and the female legends car roaring on here, 6 seconds clear of Pullman as well. And I think one in a bit of a lonely place at the moment, and when you find yourself in these positions where you're not closing to anyone but you're not got anyone behind you, how do you avoid, in a way, getting bored behind the wheel or becoming distracted behind the wheel, I should say?
I mean, at a track like this with a lot of the straight lines, it's not easy. You do find yourself zoning out and forgetting about the race almost, which obviously is a bit distracting as a driver. Me personally, I just like to look at the cars ahead, see if there's any cars ahead for position, and just keep focusing on the time gaps and trying to work them down as low as possible. And even if it's 0.1, 0.2 per lap, you're still picking up gains and you're still keeping your focus going. So especially for some of these drivers that are on their own right now, I think they'll be trying to keep an eye on the cars ahead to pull that gap down in theory.
With the gap of 14 seconds at the moment, still pushing on is the number 29 car as she makes her way into the Porsche curve this time around and coming on through there. We're nearing the halfway point at the moment. It's like continues to descend little by little, and as it does, tired legs, tired arms, and that concentration factor all playing into a key factor in this race in terms of making sure to keep your head down and carry on without making mistakes. Looking a bit further back, we've got Brad Crouch here, and what is there Jens Larsen. The RPM Racing try has been closing up very rapidly. Last lap took a whole 4 seconds out of Larsen's gap. In fact, I think we can get the comparison of, or the time delta, if you will, between the two drivers as they make their way on around. Look here on screen there for you, ladies and gentlemen. Get a shadow at the battle box. You can see there how rapidly we have had that gap come down between Crouch and Larson, and now down to less than 3 tenths. They made the way on the line. I think the move's coming.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Larson has made a mistake on the last lap or two, but the lap before this one that they've just crossed the line, he did a 56, with Crouch doing a 54, maybe a move into turn 1.
And then they go uphill to the break zone. Now looks for the move there, but Larson is defending quite hard. Crouch counts back, and now he's got the run into the S's. They made the way over Dunlop and down, and rolling into the braking zone here. I think now Crouch is going to have to wait until well down.
Yeah, it looks like he might just stay behind and try and use that slipstream to make the move on the straight. But we'll see him stay with this. See if he can get that move done.
Indeed, we'll stay with this battle all the way through as Larson goes wide.
Don't think he was too wide for the slowdown, so he might just be alright.
A drag race here as they make the way down towards the first milestone chicane. It's going to be Crouch on the right of your pitch. It's going to be Larson on the left of your picture, and keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, whoever gets ahead right now will not necessarily be able to break away, given the fact we've got 3 more straights after this. But as they make the way into the braking zone here, Crouch will take the lead position. It will soon be 7 for the time being. Now we'll wait to see if Larson can make the return and run here, or he's going to decide just to hedge his bets and tuck in behind. We've seen other drivers in the past do so. Whilst all this is playing out, we've also got a new turn in the battle for the lead. Barnes and Ferry and Seji now separated as a trio by 1.2 seconds. We will cut back to that leader battle once we've seen the conclusion of the run to Indianapolis between Crouch and Larson. Coming down towards the second chicane now, Larson is still staying there. I get the feeling, don't get me wrong, Thomas, but I think right now, Larson is playing the long game here, thinking about the run to Indianapolis.
Yeah, I think Larson might be using a bit of that racing IQ and just looking for the long run. Obviously, there's still 35 minutes left in this race, so anything can still happen. Obviously, Crouch can still make a mistake, and he can capitalise on that later in the race.
Made the way down to the braking zone here, very close, very easy to make a mistake on the brake, continuing on the dirty out of another car. We saw it earlier on where we saw the contact between Olivieri and Williams into this corner, but no such issue this time. And now it's the long run up towards Indianapolis and Arch as they charge them down. And in fact, full run up the road, they are closing on the 6th place driver from Slow and Steady Racing. Last lap, they both took half a second out of the Mun. Mun yet could be vulnerable, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. Right now, it looks like Larson not close enough to capitalise.
He's still within the draft, so he may still make a move. But I think he's just trying to stay behind, let Crouch dictate the pace right now. Obviously, Crouch has still got some good pace going from in that car, so I think they'll slowly pull up on Paul Munn in front.
Well, I think as they inch closer, we'll come back to them as it could turn into a three-way battle for the final spot outside of the top 6. But we look back to the race leaders up right now, and we can see here as we continue to march towards the halfway point in this race, Barnes, Ferrier and Seji all together now, all in a single camera shot, whereas before Seji was close, and Barnes into the pits.
Yeah, it's a bit of an interesting one, taking the early stop, maybe trying to get some clean air, but I think the air with the draft is going to be better. So maybe Seji's going to be better off being behind, but we'll see. Be interesting to see during the end of the race.
Oh, it's going to be a gamble, and Seji just setting the fastest lap of the race as well. 49 points there, 8.41. Seji absolutely flying right now. I wonder whether he feels as though this is his opportunity to pounce, given now Barnes has decided to pull in, get himself into clear air. But like you say, is it worth it, or is it better to be in a pack? And now it's only Seji and Ferrier at the front. On round and down towards the right-hand road. We have plenty of pit stop playing out at this time, but what we do have playing out a bit further back is Williams versus Olivieri heading in towards Indianapolis corner. Coming on down here, the Sausage racing driver looking at the inside, Olivieri on the outside. Inside run now for Olivieri on returning to Indianapolis, and as they make the way out left-hand, still side by side. Brilliant race between the two of them here as they head into the braking zone, back into P11, and Williams is going to defend here into our Arch, but Olivier will get the better exit off, given the fact that we have had Williams now have to compromise his exit line. We've got Patrick Thompson who's trying to recover his way back into the race, chasing after them as they make the way down, and as they build the way up to the gearbox. So I think Williams will defend this now, but brilliant racing, wouldn't you say, between the two of them?
Yeah, 100%. It's really hard to race too wide throughout this whole track. There's got to be some really good respect between all the drivers. to facilitate passes and allow a pass on another driver. So just to make an overtake, there's huge respect between the drivers just to do that.
As the respect has been given, and now they start to separate from one another. Williams taking that P11 position and hold on to it. Meanwhile, we have had a change of position from P5, what was originally P6, but due to pit stops now P5. Brad Crouch getting ahead of Munn. I think your point earlier to us about the fact that these guys are coming together and catching up to Munn. Munn under pressure here from Wes Larson.
Yeah, they've been working together, getting out some really good pace, obviously. I don't know if Paul Munn's been in the pits recently. That might be my software showing up a bit weird, but yeah. Ben Crouch is really putting down some really good pace.
Munn losing the rear of the car, they're coming out of the second chicane. I think just a little bit of the pressure getting to the second one driver, brings it back together now and pushes on. But definitely, well, from the data we've got here, yet a bit and running into P7 now. I think he'll be a little bit annoyed at the fact he's made that errors. Meanwhile, at the front of the field, we've had Daniel Sedgley and Dan Fair battle of competition, and Sedgley now takes the lead going into Indianapolis. I think this may be Sedgley's time to push on, qualifying laps at the ready in order to try and break away from Fair. More importantly, outpace Barnes, who's in P8 at the moment after his pit stop.
A wise strategy for Sedgley, and obviously I'm not going to tell him, but probably best if he pits now, because he'll come out in a bit of traffic, so he'll be able to draft still and keep up the good pace. We'll see what he does at the end of this lap going into Porsche curves, but you know he'll be coming in front of Ferraris, so he's got the good line and he's got the optimal pit stop to do it as well.
And the drivers that made the way through here will have to wait and see if he does decide to come into the pits at the end of this one, as per what be your recommended strategy, as he is absolutely flying around here right now. Indeed, the only driver really able to take a candle to his lap time besides Ferrier would be Philip Lee in P3, who has put his double seconds of his own. As they make their way towards the pit entry, will we see the number 6 car pill into the pits? We do, and Ferrier decides not to go with him. So the top three splitting their strategies. What about Lee? I think Lee as well decided to split his strategy as well. So our top four, we're going different today.
Yeah, it's a bold strategy. I mean, Dams has got some really good pace in that car from racing him earlier in practice as well. So I can see the idea behind what he's doing, but he really needs to put down some qualifying laps while he's out there on his own and go sub 50 to even have a chance of staying ahead of Sedgley coming out of the pits.
As Ferrier charges on into the unknown as our leader, 5.1 seconds clear of this man, Philip Lee. They're your two leaders out on circuit at the moment, all within the top four. Meanwhile, we have also had build-up Welling, I should say, come into the pits from onward offensive P4 as Brad Crouch carries on. We look back to Russell Barnes, who's making his way on through. Sedgley leaving the pit lane at the moment, and well, Barnes coming on through. We look to the blimp camera here to try and see where Sedgley is versus Barnes, and well, I believe that Sedgley just leaving the pit lane, albeit he's a speck in the distance. We can go to one of our lower cameras, and as they make the way out, it's Sedgley who has jumped ahead of Barnes, so this undercut has not worked out for Barnes in practice.
No, not really, but to be fair, all granted to Dan. He put down them really good laps before he came in. He did the 49.8 prior to his pit stop, and he did a 53 going into the pits as well. So he did two really good laps, the lap prior and the lap on his in lap. So he put down some really good pace. And Barnes has only been doing, you know, optimal lap times. He's not far off the pace, but he really needs to put down some good lap times, utilising the time out of the pits.
And it does look as though Barnes within a 1.5 seconds, so he will get a bit of a distant turn, Sedgley, albeit he's not going to do too much here as he gets a sniff of the slipstream, but we'll have to see if they close up and whether that gap starts to expand between the two drivers as Sedgley tries to get himself back up to temperature. Barnes has had that opportunity already to push on a bit, as we can see that both drivers using a lot of the run-off space coming out the Multan chicane number 1. But meanwhile, we have our two leaders, particularly Dan Ferrier, who is yet to pit, and he's the big question mark on this race right now in terms of going the longest of everybody. Not quite on the pace of Sedgley potentially, but he's shown the consistency all the way through, just a slight bit off the pace, and how these three will fit back together. I think Sedgley definitely bringing together a winning recipe right now, which is he's retaken a lead position over Barnes, and while Ferrier's not quite able to eke out a bit more pace, I think it could be that it will be for their Sedgley ahead of then Ferrier, who'll come out side by side with Barnes going into turns 1 and 2. We've got a cracking battle lies ahead between them. But meanwhile, further down the road, we do have Munn versus Dodgy as they make the way up towards the second Mulsanne chicane. Both of these drivers have pitted already, and well, we haven't seen them together on circuit at the moment, but I think right now Munn may just be trying to get a bit closer, but thankfully he's got a lot of straights to be able to do it. But now into that second stage, of course, 25 minutes still left on the clock. The second half of the race, you made it half the distance. What do you start to go through your head? Because you made your pit stop. Is it now just head down and carry on, or is there a bit of that sign sort of you counting down the time to the finish?
It's hoping and praying the strategy you played has played its part, and you've done the right from the beginning. So it's just ticking off those laps, keep going, keep running as fast as you can, and making zero mistakes really. And like I say, yeah, ticking down the laps, watching the minutes come down to eventually till you hit zero. But Dan Sedgley, Russell Barnes isn't going away. Russell Barnes is still there within that tow range, so there could still be a fight there towards the end of the race.
Indeed, and speaking of that, we have now into the pits of Dan Sverre as he makes his way down pit road. And then he does, so does Philip Lee, albeit Lee still 4.8 seconds behind at the pit entry line. So therefore, I think Lee is going to be out of arm's reach in terms of getting involved in this freeway battle for the lead on pit exit. But as we do see Ferry coming towards a stop, and meanwhile we look back to where Sedgley and Barnes are on the circuit, and like you say, Thomas, with regards to Sedgley right now, holding a 1.4 second gap, but Barnes is not going away. This is going to be very tight, and I do wonder whether Ferry might try and pull a little bit shenanigans with regards to the amount of fuel that goes in the car in order to bring something right back into the medley. As Ferry's already left his pit box, we do try to get now a bit of a further view, and here is the distant camera. That's Dan Sverre making his way out of the pit lane. And as he charges down, pit limiter line lines up. Meanwhile, Sedgley comes on through, and Dan Sverre retakes the lead of this race, albeit he spent 2.5 seconds less stationary time. In fact, 3 seconds less stationary time, and Ferrier's got a bit of compromise there. He's got Nick Ewers for traffic, and Ewers is going to hurt him on the exit of the chicane.
Yeah, it's interesting to see having 3 seconds less. I don't know if Dan's taken enough fuel for the rest of the race. Whether Dan Sverre has cut himself short and he's got to save a bit of fuel, but it'll be interesting to see with 25 minutes left if either of them have enough fuel and who has played the right strategy here. But obviously Sedgley's all nice and warmed up, he's done a lap out, so he'll have the pace going with him and he'll be in his groove already, whereas Dan's has got to find his groove again and also get past his back marker of Nick Ewers.
Indeed, as they charge their way down the first part of the Mulsanne straight, so she's about to make his way past Ewers. Ewers pulls over to the inside there, gives the space, and Russell Barnes will need to do the same a little bit. Barnes has fallen away a little bit over the course of the start of this lap. Gaps out to almost 2 seconds. I think a small mistake from Barnes, but he's able to correct it in due time. Meanwhile, Dan Sverre now 1 second clear of Sedgley. Sedgley absolutely storming after him. I think Barnes is feeling he needs to get into this fight before that top two starts to run off into the distance.
Yeah, the only saving grace for for Barnes right now is the fact that Nick is in front of him. So he can draft up to Nick and then hopefully pick up the draft of Sedgley again. But at the moment with Sedgley having the draft of Dan Sverre in front, it's a bit hard for him right now. So this could be the downfall of Barnes right now, to be honest.
Makes his way out of the second chicane now, pushing on towards what it is at the Mulsanne corner very shortly. Ferrier and Sedgley 6 tenths between them, if that, as they storm their way into the next braking zone. And well, this on a knife edge in terms of the battle right now. I think Ferrier, they're not having enough fuel necessary from the pit stop to go to the end, so I think he's expecting he will naturally fall back into this battle. Then whether he'll be able to get to the end, like you say, on the fuel is another question entirely. Indeed, for all of them, have they got enough? With a lot of drivers having pit stops in the region of 21 to 22 seconds. And there was some fuel saving done by these guys earlier on in the race. And whilst this top three starts to close up, we have also still got a battle between Georgie and Munn in the battle for P7 a bit further back. But otherwise, the rest of the field right now spacing out to a degree as we continue to focus on the leaders, but you never know what can happen towards the end of the race. As I try to charge their way into the business, we left it down towards Arnage they go. We ride on board the back and rear of Ferrier's car here. Onto the brakes he goes, and well, if you were a betting man, in terms of places to overtake around here, it's not about the straight in the run from Mulsanne and then up towards Indianapolis. What other corners where you look at and think as a driver, I can make an overtake there, and I can probably break away from the driver I've just made the move.
Your probably best bet is coming into Arnage to the corner they've just gone into, and then coming too wide up into the push curves, because the car, whoever comes out in front going into the push curves or going through the first section, they'll then knock off and give the dirty air to the car behind. So they'll be able to create a little bit of a gap, and obviously going too wide, they'll also be a little bit offline for the rest of the corner. So it'll be a little bit distracting for the car behind, trying to get back on his normal line to stay fast behind the car in front. So if anything, that's probably one of the best opportunities besides your straights, drafting up to the car in front. So other than that, it's a lot of issues trying to make an overtake on the rest of the circuit with the dirty air, and there really only been one line through a lot of the circuit.
Indeed, and good insights there, and the way it goes to show you around here, really thinking about this game in terms of where you overtake at Le Mans. You've got to play it right as the drivers make the way now onto what then is lap number 11. 20 minutes still on the clock. Ferrier holding that 8 tenths of a second gap here, pushing on the charge as he makes his way on now. Sergi continues to chase all the way to the line, albeit both drivers here, 9 there's still a little run to go, and with that the question of the unknown in terms of have they got enough fuel to get in. They'll think they have, or if they haven't taken enough, there'll be a reasoning behind it, and they'll be thinking about how they apply that reasoning. As Russell Barnes starting to close up, in fact just sets a personal best of the race, a 350.37 gap now down to 1.5 seconds versus Sergi, albeit the gap's going to open up as Sergi is in the toe of Ferrier and really gaining. But I think Barnes right now knows he can be in this fight. He just wants to get a little bit close here as they make their way down to the first chicane of Mulsanne.
Yeah, for Barnes at this point, it's now just staying in the fight. Anything can happen. Obviously, it only takes one mistake, especially going through Porsche curves. They've been so tight, and almost being Monaco-esque, having walls either side to the circuit very close. But any mistake through there or anywhere on the circuit, and Barnes is right in position to make up an opportunity on either one or both of them, depending on the situation. So for Barnes, it's important to stay as close, stay, if he can, to that draft range and stay with these two guys.
When it comes down towards the breakdown for the second chicane, I think he'll be looking in front of him and feeling envious that he wants to be part of the squad before the lead, as now Sergi really closing up here as they make their way out of second chicane and on towards Mulsanne. Ferrier under pressure as we ride on board with Sergi from Olympus Esports in the tournament this time, and as 2 temps hold to 2 temps for now. Sergi not opting on the move, calls out to the time. In fact, I think this might just be in order to set himself up for the run out to Mulsanne on towards Indianapolis. Brakes, they go through the right hand of both drivers, absolutely pinpoint precise as they exit and charging all the way out towards the Indianapolis Arnage complex right now. Gap 4 temps, building up through the speed, closing little by little. Now it goes to 3 temps, and well, as they head into top gear here, 510 horsepower engines, their Porsches absolutely roaring loud. 2 temps, 1.5, they're still closing. Sergi thinking about it here. Will he come in? No, he decides not to this time. But definitely getting closer and closer, and Barnes still holding about 1 seconds on average behind as they make their way out towards Arnage this time. They're feeling the pressure here, but showing no signs of making mistakes or succumbing to it as they roll off Arnage and we're charging out at the moment. And meanwhile, further afield, we've just had a purple sector 1 and a purple sector 7. So the start and the end of the lap being set by Patrick Thompson, the other Olympus Esports car still in the race. He's just set a personal best of 3 minute 50.49. Any thoughts on where he might be trying to aim towards the end of the race?
He might be looking towards the top 10. He's on the fringes right now in P11, so he's just off the really the good look of a top 10. But he does have Jens Larsen ahead of him, who also has been putting out some really good lap times, equal to Thompson. Obviously Thompson, the last time by was a second faster. But we'll see. Obviously, there's a lot of time left. I mean, what, 17 minutes left in the race. Patrick might make up that time. That's 5 seconds. Could be a 5 there between those two guys for the end of the race.
Well, indeed, and as they make their way on to another lap of race, Liz, we do look back to the man we're discussing at the moment, Patrick Thompson here, the Olympus Esports driving the 15 car, and he's trying to chase after Jens Larson, like you say, he is gaining. And that gap has now come down to 4 seconds. He has stripped a lot of time out there in very short order in the run down towards Indianapolis and Arnage. And what about Jens Larson? Here is the priority in the number 4 car. You can see the encroaching form of Thompson behind as they made the way towards the right hand very shortly of the Porsche curves. Started off the sequence, and Larson right now, I don't think he'll be looking in his rearview mirror, but he might look every so often at the relative and notice that he has got a looming threat coming. And just with that fault, when you've got a driver curled up behind you, seems to be closing rather rapidly. Oh goodness, been Larson just missing the wall there. A bit of a rub that not going full contact with. But the point I was about to go on to, when you've got somebody closing behind and they're closing quite rapidly, what goes through your mind at that point? I mean, I as a driver would be thinking to myself, okay, I've got trouble coming, but I think for Larson, he's not letting it bother him.
He's not letting it bother him, but he did run a bit hot into the corner and give it a little wall tap. So it just shows he is pushing. I think he knows Patrick is coming onto him because he makes a little mistake into Forge gains, going a little deep. So I think he is feeling the pressure from Patrick Thompson behind. As yeah, a 54.9 for Jens Larson, and Patrick Thompson with a 50.5, I think that was, running behind him. So really good pace from Patrick right now. Really trying to pull in on Jens in front.
As their battle closes up, the battle for the lead now comes back to British as Dave Sochi has just made the move for the lead versus Dan Ferrier down the second part of Muldown. Albeit Ferrier still with him as they charge the lane onto the Muldown corner. We'll get a look back on how the move was made very shortly should their battle subside. But charging on towards the hairpin now, and with Ferrier 3 tenths away. Could be playing into Ferrier's hands here in terms of making a comeback run in towards the Indianapolis corner as they head onto the brakes. As they do, meanwhile Barnes behind 1.2 seconds and now definitely almost within earshot of getting involved with this. The only thing of course for Ferrier is if Barnes gets close enough they may find themselves on a two-way fight for P2 and Sedgwick's just able to run away. We'll have to see if that's the way it plays out in practice here as Ferrier not quite able to close up. I think right now just biding his time and realising if he stays there and is able to stay within tow distance for the next couple of laps. We haven't got long left in this race. It's all going to come down to that final lap, but also on top of that it's all going to come down to whether he's got the fuel. And well, we talked about earlier the 3-second difference in terms of relative pit time. If Ferrier's going to save fuel behind Sedgwick, now this is the time to do it. Would you agree?
Yeah, being tucked right up behind the car ahead, this is the perfect time for Dan to save that fuel really, and we'll see, depending on the way he takes this draft behind Daniel Sedgwick now, going towards the Porsche, because we'll see if he's trying to save fuel, if he really closes that gap and maybe makes a move, but if he doesn't, I think he's maybe trying to save that fuel for the end of the race.
Coming into the Porsche curves now with Barnes 1.6 seconds behind the pair of leaders coming on through now. Ferrier really trying to work the car hard here to stay within that attacking distance. Keeping in mind, of course, the fact that with the position in and 30 air as well, it means that he's really having to battle against the elements, but it doesn't seem to be perturbing Ferrier whatsoever as they come out of the corner curves and now on towards the forward chicanes. After this lap, this will be lap number 12 they've completed. They will have time for another repeat there for a massive correct. 3 laps to go, maybe Cooper fourth in, albeit I think that might be a bit of a fairy tale lap as they come out to the final corners here. It's Ferrier who's still behind Sedgwick, but Sedgwick now leading for the first time this race as he crosses the line. Fastest lap of the race from Sedgwick as well, a 49.808, and Ferrier a second slower on that lap. But whilst he may appear a second slower on paper, I think Ferrier right now just trying to manage his pace and stay within the hunt for the win at the end. Meanwhile, Barnes setting what was there, a 50.52. Not a personal best, but coming close to it, and Barnes still just out. I think he just wants another couple of attempts to give himself the opportunity to get involved. But meanwhile, we look back here to Patrick Thompson and Jens Larson. They've come together, and with Thompson right now on the hunt for his man.
Yeah, Patrick's still putting out some really good pace. He may try and wait till next lap as he makes a little move out going into Porsche goes. But he may wait till he gets onto the straight, maybe the front straight, to make a move into turn 1. It's optimistic, but it's not impossible, so we'll see with Patrick if he's got the commitment to try and make that move there.
Both drivers come out of the Corvette curves here. Patrick still looking for moves. We have had a change of P2. We'll take a look back at very shortly. Barnes has moved ahead of Ferrier off camera. That was on the run on towards the first Mulsanne chicane. But here Thompson having to wait behind for now. Like you say, pretty setting it up into the next lap as they come on through. But all over the back, all the wins there. Larson as they come out the corner. It's a bit drag race up towards the chicane here as they make their way towards the Dunlop curve. Well, Thompson here peels out. He's thinking about it. It's been inside to outside as he runs up and gets ahead there. And, well, puts himself firmly in control of the position before they get to the braking zone.
Good move there from Patrick. Really using the speed off the corner and getting ahead of Jens Larson there.
Taking P10 then for Olympus Esports Try. His next target will be Jacob Harrington, who's 14.5 seconds up the road. And, well, a lot of times he goes down in a couple of laps. Relative pace would say that Harrington's on 52 versus Thompson's at 50, so 2 seconds a lap to be gained. He's going to need to find another 3 out of that, but that might be pushing it a bit. But meanwhile, coming back to the big moment that occurred further up the road 8 moments ago, Russell Barnes has taken P2, essentially now 2 seconds clear, and this is a replay of how it happened. Made their way almost towards Mulsanne. I think here we're going to see Ferrier just going slowly, and with that, designer tuck into the toe. I wonder, well, we haven't got any confirmation whether it's off track or not, but it's either a slow down, so Ferrier falling really far back. Alternatively, deciding he hasn't got enough fuel and needs to tuck into a car that he can perhaps follow a little bit more closely. But an interesting one there, and well, with that essentially now really allowed to run away with the lead of this race.
Actually a little bit more. I just thought I'd do a bit of digging, but just going onto the Mulsanne before the Mulsanne corner to start the straight, he got on the grass very wide before turning right, and he lost a lot of time putting the whole corner and getting a slowdown as well. So if you winded it back a little further, you'll see the full instant. But yeah, Dan's making a mistake by essentially almost an unforced error because it was running wide onto a corner more than anything.
Thank you for clarifying it, and with that, an unforced error changing the positioning at 4P2 here as Barnes now finds himself in the hot seat to chase down Sedgley as they make the way on around. And Barnes, of course, in race number 1 of the day, showing a lot of pace when running in P3 behind Sedgley, but in the end, a critical mistake costing him that run. And having to force him to make a recovery drive, which he did to P3. So still, Barnes could be a factor in this race with 9 minutes left on the clock as they clear another lap. Now going on to lap number, what is there, 14. And we'll on to this lap and then we'll leave another 2 afterwards. It's going to be tight to get another 2 in. You might squeeze one in, but the guy's trying to line and Sedgley right now definitely pushing on as much as he can. We have got 3 drivers who've retired from this race. We should point out, ladies and gents, we are doing a lot of focusing at the front of the field. This is where the main battles are occurring, but we have had Samuel Bernardi, so Thomas Coke, who joins me in the commentary booth with the unfortunate retirement, and also Michael Lanahan, who was not able to make it onto the grid due to technical issues with the car. And we still have 17 drivers racing, one of them in the pits, and one of Stephen Gans, who is 3 laps down and currently being serviced. But otherwise, we've got Nick Ewers, who is 3 laps down as well, and everybody else on the lead lap. But just through that order, it's Dan Sedgley who leads by 1.5 seconds right now in the closing stages ahead of Russell Barnes, P2, and 1 second gap between him and Dan Ferrier. That's your top 3, running at 2.5 seconds between all 3 of them at nose to tail, and then a further 8 seconds back we do have Philip Lee as night has descended here on the south region of France, and right now the American here, the privateer, running best to rest outside the podium spots, and I think comfortable in that P4 position. 32-second advantage over Vilda Wallin, the next driver, P5 for Team Gaia, as the female Legends machine charges on here, going into what is, I do believe, Tetra Rouge, gap 2 seconds ahead of Brad Crouch. Crouch is closing half a second a lap on Wallin, so we could have a battle on the final lap potentially if things play out and Wallin was to make a mistake. And then we do have, here's the Orgy down in P7 as he makes his way out to Tetra Rouge now, and he in turn has got an 8-second gap to Paul Munn, who makes his way in to Tetra Rouge here for Slow and Steady Racing. Both drivers were together earlier on, but the Orgy got ahead on the rundown Mulsanne. Munn's not quite had the pace to come back, and therefore the 71 driver here has relinquished the battle with P7, and now he's more focused on trying to hold on to P8, albeit the problem for him is he does have Jacob Harrington, and this man in the number 14 car, who is absolutely storming right now. Last lap was 2.5 seconds faster than Munn as they make the way on down towards what is enter the Molesden chicane, and it is Patrick Johnson, who is the fastest man on circuit at the moment, at 49.45, the new fastest lap of the race. He's recently moved to P10 ahead of Jens Larsen, and Jens Larsen, I should say, now finds himself inside the top 10, chasing down at Jacob Harrington, and well, trying to make me mark my words by saying he needs to find an extra 3 seconds out on circuit, as he has just stripped 3 seconds out of Harrington's time, but still, it's a gap. He's going to push very hard for it. I don't think he's going to have enough time to beat it down. Jens Larsen is P11 at best the rest here, the privateer, as he makes his way on through the number 4 car, and then we do have Tim Williams at P12 for Sausage Dodgers Racing. A very eventful start to this race, unfortunately handicapping what could have been an opportunity at a podium or a top 5 finish, but still the 797 driver charging on here and trying to find a way back inside the top 10 with the time remaining. And Adam Olivieri, P13, the privateer, making his way onto the Molesden straight right now. And as he charges on down here, a bit of a lonely P13, unlucky for some, but he'll be hoping for good luck following all the way to the checkered flag. Nicole Andreasen at P14 here, the slow and steady racing driver in the number 1 car, and the Danishman with a difficult day at the races, both in the sprint and in this feature race, and therefore just keeping his head down now with 6 minutes to go. Stuart Pearson at P15, the slow and steady racing driver. He is currently your last driver on the lead lap. He's 3 minutes and 12 seconds down on overall leader of Seji, but he makes his way on under the Dunlop Bridge. We then have Nick Ewers, who carries on here in what is P16, but we then have Steve Jans in the pit lane P17, but in a turn here, we've had a change of leader by the looks of things, Thomas, and I think you've been sat there quietly assessing things as Barnes has taken the lead with 2 laps remaining.
Yeah, well, while you was talking, going through the standings, I was keeping an eye on Sedgley, and he was really trying to push the pace and pushing every corner to the max, trying to break the gap to Russell Barnes. Russell Barnes putting out 49.4. Mega pace right now. He did have the draft, and he did also get let through. Sedgley made a mistake. He run wide on the exit of Porsche, catching a slowdown going into the 4 chicanes. So unfortunately, he had to let Russell Barnes go past. But now, obviously, now it's crunch time for Daniel Sedgley. I think we're coming towards the white flag lap, and now he's got the time to make. It's almost S to the race 1, where I made a mistake coming into the final lap, getting behind Daniel Sedgley. So we'll see if Russell Barnes can hold on to this. Maybe not let Daniel Sedgley have a double race win. We'll see. Obviously, there's still a lot of time left on this lap to go.
Well, completely agree with you. And as the drivers charge the way down, we'll Sedgley immediately going back with like you said, absolutely phenomenal fastest lap race of 49.44 to pull that out when the tyres have definitely seen better days, and the car now in its lightest configuration with regards to fuel, and as they made their way out of the first Molesden chicane. Sedgley absolutely trying to follow Barnes, and you see the weaving there as they make their way down. They do get 1 weave on the straights. They're not allowed to make excessive moves out of sporting fairness and also safety, and as they make their way down towards the second chicane, meanwhile Ferrier 3 seconds back and not with these guys anymore. It does look as though Dan Ferrier may be coming back, or finding that his strategy has come back towards him in terms of we might need to still sip a little bit more fuel in order to get to the end of the race unscathed. As they come through the second chicane, Barnes holding on half a second. Says he continues to wind that gap down, and well, as Barnes makes his way now down towards Molesden, Sedgley again following him absolutely religiously here in terms of wherever Barnes puts the car, the wheel tracks will be followed by Sedgley as they head down towards the hairpin, coming into the braking zone here now. 3.5 tenths as they come through. And if you're in Sedgley's shoes, what are you looking for here in terms of, do you look for it on this lap, or do you just use this lap really as your reconnaissance lap to say, okay, this is where I think I can get Barnes, and then the last lap is where you're going to do it?
I mean, personally, I would use the reconnaissance lap. Just a bit behind, see where he's a bit slower, try and find an opening where you can exploit and maybe make a move. He has really got some draft right now, so I'm wondering if he might try and make a move early. They are going side by side into Indianapolis here.
As they make the way in to Indianapolis, it's going to be Sedgley on the outside to inside versus Barnes. Sedgley goes all in the brakes here. Barnes in the end lets it go, and with that, Daniel Sedgley in a very bold and brave move takes the lead of this race back. Albeit that is the precursor to the final lap, ladies and gentlemen. This race is not over, and well, I think now we're going to have a nail biter on the final lap.
Yeah, I think Daniel Sedgley using a bit of the racing experience from race 1 when he was racing myself. Going too wide into Indianapolis, I don't think Russell Barnes has been too wide through Indy yet, so it's a bit new to him. Obviously being a little easier through the corner, but obviously Daniel making that move and making it stick as well.
making it stick thus far. Now carrying it on through the Porsche goes, and this will be the test of where Barnes feels comfortable running that dirty air, because he'll need to make sure that gap does not open up before they make the way on through Tech Rouge next time around. But as they come out into the Corvette curves here, the gap now standing at almost 5.5 tenths, in fact just over 5.5 tenths, as they come down towards the Ford chicanes. Dan Sferrier now the best part of what is at 3 seconds and 3.5 seconds off of this pair, so he is effectively off in the distance waiting to see whether there's any last lap drama between them or whether they take the lap time out of each other. But as they cross the timeline this time, Paseji comes on through. That time it's a new fast lap race of 49.182, draft assisted, but Paseji pumping in those times, and Barnes now expected to respond on the final lap.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if Barnes can really drop down in the low 49s. He did do a 50.5, so really good respectable lap time last time by. But this is going to be interesting now on the final lap. Obviously a lot of drafting. I'm hoping, I'm not an Olympus guy at this point. I'd rather have Russell Barnes win, due to Sedgley already winning one of the races to spice it up a bit. But yeah, there's quite a bit of drafting, so maybe Russell hangs back a little bit and maybe gets him in one of the final drafting sections. But we'll see what his strategy is coming into this final lap.
Well, they made the way on to the first part of Moles, and we jump on board here with Russell Barnes. He charges on down as they made the way up towards the first chicane. Gap half a second here. We're going to stay with this battle to the end of the race. We do have a growing battle between Jacob Harrington and Paul Bunn, and if there is a change, they will get a replay of that after the race is concluded here up front. As they made the way on through the Moles chicane, Barnes staying nice and close in as they power through the first one. Now down the second part of the straight here, half a second gap still. No sign of any short shifting from Barnes, so he's got the full engine available to him, doesn't have to worry too much about fuel, plus the tow to go with it. As he builds back up the throttle here, the number 18 driver now, I think thinking, okay, we've had the rehearsal, and now this is the live show. As they make the way down towards the break, it's only the second chicane, pulling right in the wheel tracks of Sedgley. But he's adding was done to him, only a lap to go. Through they go, and Barnes this time being a bit more aggressive with the approach here, really trying to close up. This is where Barnes wants to be. He wants to be at 3 tenths now. They made the way on towards the third part of the straight. With it, the Mulsanne hairpin that's coming up. In terms of traffic in front of them, they haven't got any cars for a good amount of time. Next guy is Stuart Pearson, who is approximately 17 seconds up the road. Barnes looking to the inside here. It's going to be a run on down as they make the way onto the brakes. Well, he's going for it early, interestingly. Goes all in. Sedgley a bit accommodating now. I think Finn can go for it, but Barnes overextends. He goes deep, and with that, that could be the end on the battle for the lead, as Barnes going beyond flashing his lights there. I think flashing his lights to simply say, you lucky so-and-so, as they make the way on down towards Indianapolis. But right now, Daniel Sedgley getting the move done, and with that, holding on to lead of the race. And now I think that may be it.
Really love Daniel's approach into that corner. Obviously, he knew they had the straight afterwards, after the end of Mulsanne, so he let Russell go ahead, going into the corner. Obviously, fortunate for Dan, Russell made that mistake in the Mulsanne corner, so he could really capitalise on it. And Russell Barnes already congratulating Daniel Sedgley on winning the race. Now, whether that's a little bit of a curse or not, I don't know, but there's not many opportunities left for Russell Barnes now here on out.
Oh, indeed, but as they say, there's always the commentators goes in. Let's not say that Sedgley's got this until he crosses the line. That checker flag waves. He makes his way out towards the Porsche curves. We've got Tim Williams into the pit lane. He's not had enough to get to the end in terms of fuel, so therefore Mikko Andreasen now moves to P13, going on to the final lap. He just started the final lap, and these guys are finishing it currently as they make the way on through the Porsche curves. But Sedgley just has got a couple more quarters to hook up now. He's done all the difficult ones. This is perhaps the nastiest one of all. The first of the Corvette goes. You don't want to run wide here. That's Sedgley there, deciding not to push his luck too much. Gap 1.7 seconds as they make the way up towards the Ford chicanes. It's going to be a run all in. We've got Carpenter on the road there. That's Pearson, but as he makes his way through the last couple of quarters, it's been a hard-fought battle from start to finish. But as he comes out the final quarter, he's going to make it 2 wins out of 2 today. He will be your overall winner today as well. Daniel Sedgley takes the win in the feature race ahead of Russell Barnes P2. The Olympus Esports driver just pipping the FindingSpeed.com car to the post, and then Dan Sferrier a valiant third place on the podium for Slow and Steady Racing. It'll then be Philip Lee P4, as he comes on through, not quite on the podium, but he won't mind this. It's been a strong drive from the number 17 driver, and definitely I think feeling so. He's finished right where he deserved to be, and then we will have a 30-second gap to Brad Crouch, who very shortly will make his way out of the Corvette curves. Here he comes to RPM Racing, and as he does to round off the top 5, I think you agree with me, Thomas, for Brad, it has been a very solid drive today, and in fact finding that P5 off of Builder Wallin right at the end.
Yeah, Bragg doing some really good pace towards the end of the race, so I know he had a good fight with Wallin earlier on, coming towards the final couple of laps, so it's good for Bragg to really get some good pace and have a good result as well. P5's a solid result in the Stacker field.
Almost definitely, and Builder 1 in P6 there for Team Guy ahead of Piers D'Orgy at P7, who found his way away from the likes of Jacob Harrington and also Paul Munn. Speaking of Harrington here, he is going to hold on to P8 at the end. We thought the battle was going to arise, but Munn not quite able to get close enough to make it happen in the end. So Harrington at P8 ahead of Paul Munn P9, and then Jens Larsen will very gradually make his way up towards the chicane to the final time today. It is pretty much pitch black at this point, so I think our drivers are right now. Those who have had the nighttime goggles on, they'll be thinking to themselves they'll be grateful for the fact they'll be able to go back to proverbial daylight outside of the simulator shortly, as Larsen comes out of the final quarter to complete our top 10. There he goes across the line, and then behind him very shortly, I believe, will be the car of Patrick Thompson, who finishes at P11 there for Olympus Esports. Just missing out on the top 10, but still a strong recovery drive from him as he crosses the line. It'll then be Adam Olivieri, who comes on through to take P12, albeit a little bit away at the moment, about 15 seconds away from the line, as we see him here flying on through the Porsche curves. And just a thought here, Thomas, with all the drivers, whether they're at the front of the field or the back of the field, today it's not about being the winner. Being a winner, it's just about making it to the end of the race. It's all in the name of a good cause.
Yeah, everyone here, and I including myself, we all wanted to be a part of the amazing charity that we've done this race for. So we're all really happy to have a bit of fun and have a laugh. I know myself, when we did the first race, we were all having a good chat during the race and having a laugh about what was going on track earlier on. So I'm presuming the guys will be doing the exact same for this longer race. And yeah, I know everyone's, from what I've heard at least, has had a good lot of fun and just enjoying every moment of this whole event.
Indeed, and as Olivieri comes to finish P12, Mikkel Andreasen just coasted to the line now in the number 1 car. It'll be a P13 for him, and as he comes on through, he will complete our finishing order on the lead lap. We have had Tim Williams, Stuart Pearson and Nick Ewers complete the race already, and I believe Steve Jans has finished in the pit lane at P17, but that concludes our racing here, ladies and gentlemen. And well, as Daniel said, they're doing some celebratory donuts, but then writing off the right-hand side panel of the car. I don't think Olympus Esports will be too happy to cover the check for that one by the sounds of things, Thomas.
He's trying to do some donuts. I don't think he doesn't realise you can't turn down the traction control because of this being a fixed setup race. So he couldn't turn it down, so he couldn't do the full donuts. But you got to try what you can to celebrate the race, right?
Oh, indeed you have. And well, to finish things off and celebrate, let's take a look through those race results. And as we can see, after 60 minutes of racing, Daniel Sedgey taking the win, back-to-back wins today, and our overall winner, which will mean he will be the recipient of the Takona t-shirt, as specially provided by our partners for this event, Takona, and also the hand-engraved coin commemorating this event, and the Olympus Esports driver taking the win by 6.5 tenths in the end over Russell Barnes for finding speed. A good drive there for Russell Barnes. I believe, again, that said he won the first race. The 3-month Race Lab subscription may go to Barnes as the runner-up of this race. We'll have to wait and see what the organisers decide afterwards. But Barnes still putting on an absolutely brilliant drive to P2, and then Dan's Ferrier completing the run to 3rd place in the end. A deserved podium for Sedgey, Barnes and Ferrier, the slow and steady racing driver in the end, gambling on strategy, but I think it was a gamble that was a little bit too far. That's also a mistake at the end, cost him, putting him out of that battle, but it all not going the way of Ferrier, but going the way of Sedgey and Barnes. And then Philip Lee just outside the podium, P4 in the end. A good drive for the privateer ahead of Brad Crouch, who the RPM racing driver, finishing what was effectively 30 seconds down on the top 4, but still they're bringing on home the final top 5 spot. Team guys at Vilda Wallin losing out by 3.5 seconds in the end to P6, but still a great drive from Wallin, given how it went in race number 1 to bounce back in such a fashion. Piers D'Orgy the P7 for Slow and Steady Racing, leading ahead of the teammates of Jacob Harrington and Paul Munn, and then Jens Larsen completing the top 10, the privateer in the number 4. Patrick Thompson at P11 there, the Olympus esports driver, recovering to P11 after a difficult start from the pit lane, and then Adam, well, not from the pit lane I should say, after that instant on the run on Molzan on lap number 1. Then Adam Olivieri P12 there, the privateer ahead of Mikkel Andreasen, our last lead lap finisher for Slow and Steady Racing. Then finishing a lap down, Tim Williams for Sausage Dodgers Racing and Slow and Steady Racing Stuart Pearson to complete your top 15. And as we finish our order, we can see Nick Ewers there, 3 laps down, P16, ahead of the retirees of Steve Jans, Samuel Bernardi and Thomas Cope, who's joined me in the commentary booth. It's been great to have you here, Thomas, and Michael Lanahan completing our top 20 there. Unfortunately not able to make it to the grid in the end due to technical issues going into the race. But just before we take a breather to get ready for post-race interviews, any last words for you, Thomas?
Just say driver of the day for me, Brock Crouch. Really putting on some good show and coming back for the field. Obviously, Daniel Sedgley with the double win. Got to give him the credit. It's a really good effort, especially with the reverse grid for the second race. But driver of the day in my vote, obviously, it's never going to be my teammate. I love him to bits, but I'm going to give it to Brock Crouch in my opinion.
Well, I think I could agree with you on that. We have had Brack really have to battle his way back against adversity in the first race today after the netco contact into Indianapolis with Piers d'Orgy, but never gave up. And like you say, to finish what was in the end P5, may not have been on the top 4 pace, but definitely giving it everything to finish inside the top 5, a deserved effort. And with the RPM racing driver also getting my driver of the day nomination. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, just before we do cut away to post-round interview preparation, we'd just like to say once again that if you have enjoyed today's show and you would like to donate or know more about the cause that we're racing for, we're racing in aid of Campaign Against Living Miserably in partnership with Takona and also a sim racing community. And we here at SAS Racing Team take mental health very seriously. We'd once again recommend that you do check out the GoFundMe page, link available in the YouTube chat or the Twitch chat, depending on which media platform you're tuning in via. But with that, we're going to take a breather of approximately 10 to 15 minutes, and we'll be back after that for our post-race interviews with our drivers. We'll see you shortly. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is now time for our post-race interviews with our volunteer drivers. And today, we've only got one volunteer from our participants, but understandably so. I think a lot of our drivers are absolutely exhausted after racing for the best part of a combined 90 minutes at Le Mans, and therefore I think many of them are now getting themselves set to rest, relax, perhaps take a look back at the broadcast and see what we've been able to achieve here today, and also get ready for a week of work ahead tomorrow. But we have got one interview, and it's none other than the event organiser today, and well, we couldn't have him not go away without saying a few words, and it is Paul Munn, who we now join via voice chat here. And well, hello again to you, Paul. It's now been 90 minutes of racing, or where's 105 if you include qualifying. It was hard, it was fast out there, and I think the SAS racing portion has been bruised and battered in some regard, but it looks like you had a lot of fun out there, and particularly in the feature race, a valiant drive to P9. All in all, a lot of fun?
Yeah, and I'm glad we don't actually pay for these cars because it was battered. But yeah, great fun had by all, and I will watch stream back, but I think it was all raced in the correct spirit, and people were donating during the stream as well, which is nice to see. and I think we've done very well, thanks.
Oh, indeed. And as we look back on the racing today, from your own perspective, of course, nobody going into today with any expectations beyond looking to have fun and have a little bit of enjoyment, all for a good cause in aid of the campaign against living miserably. But we saw from yourself start off in qualifying a P12 on the grid. How was qualifying for you, given the fact this circuit is so difficult to nail over a single lap?
Yeah, I didn't do too great. I didn't do the sort of lap times that I can do and have done in practice. There's been a lot going on, if you know what I mean, before the race for me, and concentration was not. it was probably not right there. It's not the ideal build-up hosting, like running this sort of thing. I mean, it was slippery. The track was slippery. The first lap of qualifying is kind of a write-off because the tyres are cold, the track's slippery where it's quite hot. And the first lap is just like trying to get around. I think a few of the guys had trouble from the chat. A few guys wrote off their first lap, and then you just really need to nail it on the second and third. But yeah, I was kind of happy with it. Got it around.
Indeed, I was putting laps together, P12 on the grid, going into a sprint race where, again, I think at that point you may have been able to settle down a little bit knowing we were going racing and therefore everything was proceeding swimmingly. But after a couple of corners, it looked as though things went a bit wrong.
Yeah, you could say that. Coming out of, I can't remember, it seems like so long ago. We, because of the slipstream so powerful here, I haven't looked back on that one yet, but from all counts, it turns out we were 3 wide, and I didn't realise. I thought we were just 2 wide. I thought I had more space, and I think I moved over a bit to the left, and that resulted in, I think it resulted in me being upside down, which is never ideal. But yeah, that went wrong. That's probably my fault there. It might have been a bit in that code, I'm not sure. But yeah, I just thought there's only one person on my left and I had more space than I did.
Oh, indeed, and a bit of a difficult incident in what was the feature race there with the 3 wide battle, albeit it was a thriller. We thought we might have seen a run all the way down to Mulsanne Corner, but still, what we got to see in the end was a spectacle in of its own right, if you will. And with that in mind, of course, in the sprint race, then having to recover from the pit lane and carry on to the finish, and ended up finishing at P16 when all was said and done. Albeit it looks as though just keeping your head down and charging on gave you an opportunity to get some more practice in before going to the feature race.
Yeah, basically, calm myself down, get back in the rhythm, and I think I got pulled a couple of places back as well, because other people you've got to carry on. Someone else might have a problem, and it might be bigger than the one you had. So yeah, it was good. It was good.
And I have to ask, we were speaking earlier with Thomas Cope, who joined me in the commentary booth for the three quarters of the feature race, and he was talking about the fact of very convivial and jovial atmosphere within the chat. Of course, something not available to all of our viewers, but most of our drivers were in a voice chat together over the Discord voice over the internet service. And I had to ask, when the sprint race was coming down to those final few minutes, was it still that attitude, or was everybody sort of turning their focus onto, okay, it's the final lap, I need to focus now?
Oh, you know what? It was all quite still chatty. The guys at the front were quiet. they were quiet. I imagine they had us all muted. It was quite nice. Quite a little bit of banter going on between the drivers. It was good atmosphere. A nice bunch.
Oh, that's brilliant to hear. And then coming on to what was the feature race, albeit the 5-minute break, regrouping and starting the feature race and what would be P5 on the grid. And we didn't quite see you have perhaps the start you wanted, but the thing we got to see the most out of you is the fact you never gave up, and a P9 come the end of it under the night lights here in France. Quite an achievement.
Yeah, I was quite happy with that. I mean, I had to look back at the first, I spun on the curves after the Dunlop chicane. I thought I'd been touched, but I looked back and no one was near me, so that was all on me. I think I put a wheel too much on the grass on the curb. And then I think it helped me because obviously that put me quite far back, but then there was a massive crash going into the first chicane, or just before the first chicane along the Mulsanne Straight, which meant I kind of totally avoided that. Just drove through it and gained quite a few places back there. and then I was just slowly catching the guys in front, and yeah, just plod away, and yeah, back up to ninth. Quite happy with that.
A great drive tonight, and a little bit of a battle between yourself and your teammate and good friend off the circuit of Piers d'Orgy. Just take us through what it is like battling with your teammates here in a friendly atmosphere. Of course, you both want to be one step ahead of each other.
Oh yeah, it'd been great fun, but I didn't stand a chance against Piers. He's too fast for me. But yeah, no, it's good fun because, like as you know, we all do actually know each other, and we've all, quite a few of us have met up as well, actually at Le Mans. And yeah, it's quite fun when you know the person you're racing as well, instead of just a sort of a name, like, you know, someone, an anonymous person. It does add a bit of extra spice and quite a good chat. And we all help each other as well in practice and that, and get better and that. So it's quite nice. Yeah.
Oh, 100%. And then going on to the wider picture and why we're all here today, like you said earlier, we've had some absolutely fantastic donations as today's broadcast has gone on. We're now at £1,685 out of our ongoing target that ever increases of £1,800. Big thank you to everyone who's donated during the broadcast, and really look into yourself for any final words with regards to today's event. You've been the brains behind it, perhaps an exhausted set of brains right now, but everything has gone absolutely swimmingly.
Yeah, I just want to thank every single person that's taken part and donated. A few people donated and couldn't take part, but they still donated. I appreciate it, and yeah, I think we've gone way over expectations of what I thought we'd race. So there's a couple of people out there that have just done amazing things for us, and but you know, I want to thank every single person that's donated, and yeah, and we will be doing something else. This has been such a success that we can't not. We're going to have to do something else, bigger and better next time.
Well, that's absolutely great to hear, and I'm sure many tuning in right now will hear that and be looking forward to the next rendition of a charity event hosted by SAS Racing Team. Today it's been about who cares, wins, and everybody I think has taken to the grid has definitely cared about a good cause. And just before we do let you go, Paul, is there anybody you'd like to give a special thank you to or a special mention to on the broadcast?
Just like to thank basically people who came in and joined us that don't know us. You know, there's so many events you can join, and the people that chose to join us. Russell at Finding Speed. It's great that he come over. He's quite a successful YouTuber in his own right, and he's got his own team. That, you know, having someone like that come over was great. That really helped. And yeah, and we got other teams as well, new teams and that, and just it's sort of building a bigger community, because yeah, we started doing this, and then some guys that came in to do this charity event were running their own charity event just a couple of weeks ago, and so a few of us took part in that, and you're starting to see the same names pop up and that, and just want to thank the community itself. Really, it's just really good. Yeah, and also I like to thank the streamers, yourself and Dizzy, for giving up your time, your Sunday and that to do this. It sounds like you've done a great job. I've had reports that the stream's been amazing, better than F1 apparently.
Well, I must admit, it's been an absolute pleasure to hearing that feedback like that. I think it means that we've done a great job here in the content in the broadcast booth. But with that, Paul, thank you very much firstly for joining me in the interview room, but also for putting this all together and enabling it to run absolutely perfectly from start to finish. And we look forward to what events lie in wait, necessarily later on this year, but definitely in the future either way. But congratulations on your performance today, and well done on running this event once again.
Thank you, and thanks again for your contribution of hosting the, commentating and streaming. Thanks a lot.
Well, with that, Paul, we wish you all the best. Have a lovely evening.
Yep, you too. Thank you, Paul.
So hearing there from Paul Munn from Slow and Steady Racing, one of our participants today on the grid, but also the organiser behind today. Of course, he's had a team behind him, but when we say the organiser, really, Paul's been the man with the thought, the vision, and everything behind him, and really trying to push this event. And like he says, bringing together a whole variety of people, a lot of people who were not necessarily known at SAS Racing team before today, including the likes of, say, Russell Barnes from FindingSpeed.com, also our colleagues at Olympus Esports of Patrick Thompson, also Daniel Sedgy and Thomas Cope, who joined me in the commentary booth. And I'd just like to say a special thank you myself to Thomas Cope for joining in when he could have just sat by the wayside, alternatively assisted his teammates and race directed them, instead coming into the commentary booth. And that's what it's all about. When things don't necessarily go right, you find a way to help out in a great event. And well, I think we'll all agree here, it was a pleasure to have Thomas join me in the booth, but also a huge thank you to everybody who took part today, whether they won alternative fish right at the back or whether they had to have an unfortunate retirement. They have made this event what it has been today. And indeed, as we bring our interviews to a close, I think Paul and all the team will be absolutely happy with how things have proceeded. But indeed, that concludes our post-race interviews. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, we've only had one interview this evening, and that has been Paul Munn from Slow and Steady Racing. We could have had a couple more interviews, but unfortunately nobody else available. As we said earlier, I think everybody decided to take a sit back, relax, and now just tune in to the broadcast from their perspective, alternatively get themselves ready for a week of work ahead. But either way, thank you to Paul Munn for joining me in the interview room, and congratulations to him on his results, and indeed to all of our drivers for joining today and their performances. But with that, before we begin to wrap up, we just like to take another look back at the GoFundMe page, which you'll see on screen now. And well, as you can see there, the confirmation, we've now moved to £1,685. Indeed, thank you to all of you who have donated midway through the broadcast today. And whether it has been a penny or alternatively a pound, it's been absolutely appreciated, and all in aid of the campaign against living miserably, and indeed in partnership with Takona and also Sim Racing Community. This event by SAS Racing Team could not have gone better. In fact, we far exceeded our expectations, and you guys and girls tuning in and donating have made it even more so. Indeed, what a way to battle for mental health, but also at the same time to send off the GTE class on iRacing. Thank you all for tuning in and for your contributions. But with that, it does mean it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today and you'd like to know more about Calm and our partners for this event, why not check out the web pages below? We start off there with the Calm official website. How could we not start off with them? Their web address, www.thecalmzone.net, if you want to find out more about the campaign against living miserably in terms of what Calm does, whether it be in the world of online events, real world events, or everywhere in between, and indeed the routes and mechanisms by which they're bringing people together to talk about mental health and make sure that nobody is alone and miserable, but indeed everybody's able to come together and work together for the benefit of the mental health state. We'd also like to remind you of the GoFundMe page there, which you saw only moments ago for this event, and indeed the link is available on screen there. And we'd also like to say a big thank you to our partners. You saw them drop into the YouTube chat earlier on. That's Takona. Their official website is www.takona.co.uk, and let's not underestimate the work they're doing in support of mental health, particularly men's mental health, by getting the automotive community engaged and involved with one another, changing the stigma that men cannot talk to one another. We also have Sim Race Security there. Thank you to them for contributing to our prize pool for today in terms of what was the the coaching session available for the driver who's drawn out of the raffle, and indeed that raffle will be taking place later on today, I do believe, but outside this broadcast. And the Sim Racing Security, or SRC, is a platform aimed to bring together all areas of sim racing to create a one-stop shop which offers prospective sim racers everything they need to support them on their sim racing journey. And indeed, by having that positive approach and a one-stop shop, it means that it improves the mental health of those drivers who want to get into sim racing and find their feet comfortably. And lastly, we'd just like to say SA Racing Team, if you want to know more about us, our Instagram page is there, and indeed you can check out a lot of pictures from tonight's event. Those pictures will be most likely up and available within the next couple of days. We'll also get to find out more about the team, and indeed follow us on Instagram to stay in tune for the upcoming events. Paul did indicate, that's Paul Munn, did indicate that we'd be hosting future events, and well, we'd love to have you follow us in preparation for those, and love to have you on the grid in the future. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we now bring this event to a close. We have been SAS Racing. iRacing. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. But until next time, it's goodbye from us all here in the name and in aid of the Campaign Against Living Miserably. Thank you very much for tuning in, for all your support. But with that, we wish you all the best. Have a fantastic rest of your evening. Remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.